You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com. And now, our feature presentation.
Welcome to the exciting world of the movies.
It's a spooky day because we're back. Anything can happen. After a month's long absence, it was Camp Crystal Lake that brought us back out into the fold, wasn't it, Trev?
It was, and you say spooky. If anybody hears an extra spooky soundtrack in this episode, there's actually a thunderstorm raging where I'm at right now. So
Amazing.
Can't think of a better environment to dip back into our Friday the 13th franchise run through here.
If we would have recorded this a couple hours earlier, you would have heard all the workmen replacing the siding on my house. You would have heard them banging. You probably would have thought Jason was trying to get in the room and murder me.
Having workmen work on your place can be equally scary, so I get it.
Especially when you work at home and you have 9 hours straight, starting at 8 a.m. sharp of banging and pounding and walls shaking, yes. But we are back, and we are going back to Camp Crystal Lake to uncover, this is pretty much, the original title to this film was, well, it wasn't a title, but subtitle was Jason's Unlucky Day, and I think that should become the official title at this point. Because the real title, Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter, turned out to be a complete fucking misnomer, didn't it, Trev?
Well, I think this is the only franchise that I know of that has 2 movies with final in the title, and both of them are a lie, so... Yeah. That's how long this franchise went, and I don't even believe, I've watched obviously the documentary, Crystal Lake Memories. I have the book and I've read the book. I don't believe anybody involved for a second when they say this was ever even planned to be the last one. I don't think that was ever the case. Now they rolled into Part 5 too fast to believe that, but we'll talk more about that during the movie. Obviously. Exactly. But I'm excited for this one because I would say, wouldn't you? This is this is a lot of people's favorite entry in the series, I'd say. This is definitely a very, very beloved entry. We'll talk about how we feel about it as we watch it, but I know this is one that people have probably been waiting for us to get to after Part 3, which I know is more mixed.
Exactly. So grab your spooky Blu-ray remotes and Apple TV controllers and get ready. I have it here. I'm rolling off the Blu-ray, collector's edition Blu-ray. I got it at the 2-second mark. You should just be seeing the tip of the Paramount logo. This is before this mountain was a plus, Trev. It was just a Paramount mountain. Now it's a plus. But yeah, 2-second mark. You're just seeing the tip of the little thing here, little mountain. It's very. I don't know about you, Trev, but I've always been taken back by this painting of this logo they did. I think it's beautiful.
It's a great painting. I just miss all these the '80s logos for every company. Just bring such a nostalgic smile to me, But I miss the painting version as opposed to the more animated CG version.
Exactly. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, go, and you hear me say the word go. Please hit play on your remote. Remotes in hand, everybody. 1, 2, 3, go. That's right. Now we got some clouds rolling. Mm-hmm. I never thought about it as a kid, but eventually a couple years I looked up how the old logos, how you said it, Paramount, a Gulf Western company. Gulf Western was a very strange company to buy a movie studio. But that's what these big corporations were doing. They were just buying movie studios for the heck of it in the early 80s.
I mean, not too different than today, right?
Yeah.
Studios are just controlled by other multimedia companies. Hey, wait, Goat, I thought we were watching Part 4. Why was we got Part 2 going here suddenly?
Yeah, when I was watching this the other night, I was like, man, I just initially was so thrown back to Part 2. Even though the last one we did last year was last August, I believe, was Part 3. Mm-hmm. It's just I don't know why, for some reason, and this movie is direct continuity with Part 3, but I gotta say, tonally, maybe this one's a little more classic style, like how Part 2 was.
Oh yeah, I think this is kind of a return to form, and I think it makes sense to start with the campfire telling of the story. It's a perfect framing device to get the backstory in. And the thing, I'm sure we said this last time too, but all these initial Friday the 13th movies start with these recaps, and they were kind of necessary at the time because home video wasn't a thing yet. Right. So everybody going to see this in the theater, hadn't seen the movie a bunch of times on TV or rented it or owned it. So they needed these recaps in a different way. I think they only become annoying today when you do what I periodically do and watch all of these over a week or something. Yeah. And then you're always like, wow, my God, I just watched this, So,
but you can use this as a popcorn break though.
Yeah. I actually found it helpful. I rewatched this yesterday as well to get prepared. It was actually kind of helpful to have this recap.
Yeah, so the director of this movie, Joe Zito, he hated this. and nobody involved in the actual movie, like the writer, the director. So I was like kind of thinking like, how do you go about this when you do these recaps, Trev? Like, what scenes do you show? What scenes do you not show? Whatever. And yeah, like the writer, the director, the editor even had no input into this clip show. This was just under the supervision of the producer, Nick Mancuso Jr., and it was just, okay, this is part of your film now. Nothing you can do about it.
Frank Mancuso Jr.?
Yeah, would I say Nick? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Frank Mancuso Jr.
I think I mean, to his credit, like Frank Mancuso Jr. is someone who knew the franchise very well. He was its steward for a long time, and I think hearing that, I do believe this is actually a pretty effective montage. I think they picked some great shots and great moments. I like this as a recap. It's still brief too. You know, it gets to the point quick. It's not like part 2, which I think starts with like a really long sequence of part 1, right? So I like this is just kind of gets us in, gets us out. Now here we are heading into the movie proper.
And a nerdy thing there, Trev, is part 3 was the only Friday movie, at least up to this point, filmed in 235:1 scope. They had to do that because of the 3D process. So you actually get to see the scope scenes from part 3 kind of cropped down to a regular widescreen there.
And now you know this movie's serious and it means business because we got fucking explosions in the opening credits.
Yeah, like Joe Zito was bitching because the way that effect was supposed to work was it was like the actual mask was supposed to explode and like you're supposed to see it break apart and pieces of the mask come out, but like they couldn't afford that, so you got what you got, which is basically the title, the final chapter, flinging at the mask, and then just like a fireball shoots up on screen. Now, I want to ask you, Trev, what do you feel about? It's very classic, but it's also very cheap. The Friday the 13th opening logo is just white text on a black background.
I like it. I was actually just about to say, just the optical like credits where it's got the little wobble on it. I'm again, it's just, I know it's just because I grew up with this stuff, but I love it. I love the simplicity of it. I think it is nice to, especially following that, like I miss opening credits in films in general, and like following that little recap, there's something nice about just sitting there and getting ready for the vibe by just hearing the score, you know, seeing the credits and allowing yourself to just take it in and get ready. I wish more movies would kind of bring this back. Yeah, and they never had like a really fancy logo or anything, you know, just a little, well, Friday the 13th eventually developed a logo, but I like how these credits are just kind of pure, simple, white on black.
Exactly. Sounds like a storm brewing outside here too, Trev. We're both getting spooky here on Friday the 13th.
Yeah, they knew. The world knew that we were going to be watching this.
Jason knew. Yeah, so I got to talk about this, Trev. First of all, I want to say the Screen Factory version, they did a new transfer. The original Paramount Blu-rays actually look pretty decent for what they're, but this particular movie looks very nicely upscaled. This sequence in particular looks very nicely upscaled into 4K off this new transfer. And this was inspired somewhat by Orson Welles' Touch of Evil. And right off the bat, like, I've seen this movie so many times, Trev, but like, I don't know if it was just because I was sitting down, I was paying attention, the surround sound was cranked, everything like that at night. But like, I really got into this opening sequence, and I think it's quite brilliant. And it's like, I like what Joe Zito brought to this because it's much more than just a straight up exploitation film. Like I feel like he brings these little classic flourishes like this with this long steady cam shot, which is they went back to the location of Friday 3 and they're showing the cops and the paramedics bringing out all the bodies, and it's just really cool in a really like classic way.
Well, that connection makes sense because if you visit his entire filmography, of course, whenever I watch a Joe Zito movie, the first thing I think is this guy's like Orson Welles.
Yeah. Especially when I play his Sega CD video games that he directed.
Like no, I like the sequence as well. I really like that is the one thing with the recap where you say like maybe felt like the recap got in the way from just starting here, but I agree that I've always really liked this. The real direct continuity between 3 and 4, and even just like the first 4 in general, like how much they feel of a piece. And I do like this picking up in the immediacy of part 3. Now it'll cause some like timeline issues later, I think. Like, well, and we can talk about that as they pop up. The timeline gets a little wonky, but again, if you go into the Friday the 13th series, you would just have to have some expectations that it doesn't all add up. But no, I really like this as an opener. Hey, these paramedics that we're about to have like get their own little kind of moment here. Do you think that in the world of Friday the 13th, do you think they're friends with Roy or know Roy?
I don't know because
the coworkers, obviously, right?
Well, it's hard to say though because that could be Roy right in the background right there because there's that old school like ambulance hearse type, whereas like these paramedics like they have the legit ambulance van. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But
I just feel like the entire like paramedic community in this area is probably pretty small. But what do I know?
I gotta say too. I was actually kind of digging these side characters. Like usually in these like really tiny roles, 2-line roles, whatever, like of these low budget movies, I was like actually digging this pair of the paramedics with the.
Yeah, I think she has a great like frightened look. You know, like she performs the sequence very well for such a small role. I agree.
And I think it's kind of easy too when you're making this type of film. Kind of what the trend is now, Trev, is like you just cast a bunch of 29-year-olds no matter what role they're playing. Whereas like I actually like the dynamic. You have this kind of like older, kind of Italian-looking guy, and he's paired up with this younger woman paramedic, and like he's just like he's seen it all, done it all. But like you said, like this younger woman coming to this giant crime scene. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of funny though, because like everything was with the spotlight, Trev, and I mean we know because we know part 3, and because they went back to the same movie ranch where they shot part 3, but you can't even really tell that's the same house there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it looks enough. Like I think if you watched it, you know it's a connection. But I wish the area where I wish they'd pushed a little further is it would have been nice if they could have got back the actress. Was it Chris was the name of the heroine in part?
Yeah, Dana
like
Kimmel, I think.
Yeah, if she had been in the sequence, that would have really like sold it. You know, just show her, you know, with a blanket around her being put into a cop car. That would have been really nice.
Well, it definitely was not realistic in terms of real life terms because like all the cars drove out of that ranch there at the same time. The cops, the police, which obviously the cops would be there for like literally days on end. But I from a filmmaking standpoint, I like that they all drove out, and the director held on the scene for like a beat and it was just a quiet, dark, kind of eerie place, and then we kind of smash cut into them wheeling Jason into the hospital. And apparently there was a not deleted scene in terms of like they never got to shoot it, but in the script apparently. When they're wheeling Jason by, you just see a waiting room of some crying parents. And originally there was going to be a scene in that room. Those were supposed to be I don't know what character, but those were supposed to be the parents of one of the victims from part 3. And I thought that was a nice touch. And I definitely could see like Joe Zito and like his attention to kind of storyline. He would like to include that, but he said when it came down to budget and shit, they just never really got to shoot it.
Now here we got good old Sergeant Fackler himself. Bruce Mahler playing Axel here. So, Goat, I don't know if you are aware of this. I don't know how much you monitor my Letterboxd. But a few weeks ago, I made, I don't know if it's a good call or a bad call, I watched the entire Police Academy franchise over the span of like 3 days. So it was very interesting. It was very kind of cool to come back to this movie and be reminded of how different of a character Bruce Mahler is playing here from Fackler, who is like kind of like a standout character of the first Police Academy, and he's in some of the sequels, but doesn't really get his the spotlight again until part 6, I believe, is when they kind of put more attention back on him. He's like missing from some of the middle ones. Where are you on Police Academy? How do you feel about it? Because I can tell you in a moment how I felt revisiting it.
I love Police Academy. I actually bought the UK Blu-ray box set. It's region free, but I bought the UK box set like back in 2015 or 16 when we started the show with the explicit intention of doing what with Police Academy, what we've been doing Friday the 13th the last couple of years, and it just never got around to it, and I never really knew anybody else who'd be interested in like watching it. So like I might have to draft you to come in once a year and do a Police Academy with you.
I'll go and do it again.
But I loved it, and it was kind of because I'm a few years older than you, Trev. Like it kind of like really hit my demographic hard, and I remember by the time we got to 3 and 4, it was like the cool thing in my elementary school because there was actually a neighborhood theater, a little 2-screen neighborhood theater within walking distance of my house, and it was the cool thing when a Police Academy opened. Like you would go that Friday or that Saturday, and we would always see our classmates there in line, and it's like literally. I mean, I don't want to over-exaggerate, like we weren't lined up the block, but it was a healthy line of probably 30, 40, 50 kids, and just literally all these 9 to 10 to 12-year-olds in line. And I distinctly remember, because it was one of the few times I went to the movies by myself because I was going with my school friends and paying $2.50 to get in to see one of the Police Academies.
Yeah, no, I remember. I that's why I kind of revisited it. For me, I hadn't seen it in a long time, but I remember how much of a big deal they were when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And I remembered seeing 4, 5, and 6 in the theater. Those are the 3 I have a memory of going to see in the theater. And revisiting it, I kind of had the mentality of that. I don't necessarily think any of them are like great movies, but for the reputation they have now, I was like, 1 through 4, I'm like these are decent enough. Like they're amusing, and but I really the Mahoney-less entries are pretty rough. The 5 through 7 is, and 7 is really like one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. But yeah, those first 4 I think are fun to revisit.
You know what's really odd too, Trev, is I grew up in Cincinnati, which Cincinnati is famously the home of Kenner Toys, which was at one time a small toy company that blew up because they got the Star Wars license. Well, they would actually, this is like so bizarre to think this would be allowed, but they would actually pull us out of class. Like when I was in like first, second, third grade, they would pull us out of class. Like you would just get, you would volunteer, and then like they would randomly choose like some kids. And I don't know what the criteria is, but I got chosen one time to go, and you basically do for like an hour or two, instead of like sitting in class with, doing schoolwork, you would do a focus group from the people for Kenner. And I got called in. The one time I was actually able to go do it, I got called in. It was for the Police Academy line. And they
for the cartoon.
Yeah, they showed some. They showed like on VHS. They showed me some clips from the show, and then they didn't have me fill out sheets. They basically had a lady interview me. She asked me the questions and stuff. And she asked me who my favorite character was, and I told her Mahoney because Mahoney is like Rambo, and she thought I said Rainbow, and I was like, no, Rambo, like John Rambo.
Can I ask why you were drawing a comparison between Mahoney and John Rambo?
To me, like, okay, that was just my child mind, was like I liked that he was violent, and to me, he was in the same class as John Rambo. You know what I mean? And I want to say, wasn't there even like one of the sequels where like they kind of did a part where he like put the red headband around his head or something?
Aren't you? You're thinking of Tackleberry, though, aren't you?
Oh yeah, No, sorry, not Mahoney. Yeah, Mahoney is Steve Guttenberg, right? Yeah, I'm thinking of Tackleberry. Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. That would be crazy if I said Mahoney was.
Yeah. Tackleberry's great.
What's funny though when you rewatch the original, because Mahoney kind of became like the straight man of the hero of the series. Mahoney's just a horn dog in the first one.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, I mean, pretty much through all of them. Because we are talking Friday the 13th, I don't want to overlook that we just had the first like great death, and that is of Bruce Mahler, the hacksaw to the neck and then just spinning the head around. Great slasher kill.
Very simple gag, but don't you think that was an effective use of that, like the fake saw?
There's a lot of good like simple stuff in this one. Like Zito knows what he's doing, and there's a great edit here too. And like on her death, where then cuts to the mother and daughter jogging, just the abruptness of that. I think there is I know Joseph Zito gets like a lot of. I don't know. I think maybe because of The Prowler, which isn't the greatest movie in the world.
No, it's not.
But I think people need to pay more attention to this film, and like as you said, how well directed this is compared to like a lot of the other early Friday the 13th.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say without sitting down and marathoning them all, but I mean, at the very least, I think you got to say this is in the top 3 best directed Fridays.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, like I guess going back to those death scenes, we got the first like really up close shots of Jason's new hands, and I don't remember him having such dirty ass Lee press on nails in part 3. Is that just my imagination, or was his nails always that gruesome?
Yeah, no, I think that's kind of a new addition here, like the long nails. Yeah, it's his look. We talked about this obviously already in the first 3, but his look evolves every time. It's never consistent. Obviously, we'll get a lot of opportunity to talk about this version of Jason. But speaking of crazy looks, we also have our first. What do you think? The Tommy Jarvis of it all.
Yeah.
Right? The young boy who's obsessed with horror movies, and is obviously a little tribute to Tom Savini. He's his little monster mask and monster makeup maker himself. Does it ever bother you when you watch it now, like how advanced the masks they put in are meant to be? Okay.
It bothered me as a kid, to be honest with you, too. Like, really, you know what I mean? But you're kind of like, it's a movie, it's overblown, you know what I mean? But the thing is everybody's like, oh, he's Tom Savini, he's this. Like, which I mean, obviously that probably was because Tom Savini did the effects, these movies. But like, don't you think also too? It's kind of like, in a weird way, it's kind of like Easy Out. Like, it's a lot like the kid from Salem's Lot.
What do you mean by Easy Out?
Like, it's kind of like Salem's Lot. You kind of have the thing of the kid who he's into like classic monster movies. So like when the vampire thing happens, like He
Oh,
knows.
you mean for what happens at the end? Yeah, I see. What you're
Yeah,
saying.
like it's just because Tommy is into making alien monster masks because he was playing Zaxxon and he has an alien monster mask. He understands the psychology of horror's like greatest villain, Jason Voorhees. You know what I mean? Like it's.
Yeah. It's a storytelling convenience. I see. Yeah.
Now we got to talk about the man of the hour making his appearance here.
Hmm. I know you would join me in being a super fan here,
Oh,
right?
huge super fan.
Crispin Glover. Yeah, one of my early weird actor obsessions. I mean, I don't mean like the obsession is weird, but he's like when I got into the idea of just like oddball actor and celebrity personas. Crispin Glover was always an early like attraction for me of just being like, I love how this guy just seems so strange, both in the roles he takes and in real life. And to this day, I'm a fan. I've met him. I've gone to one of his where he shows his movies and does the slideshow. I still to this day will always defend Crispin Glover.
You got to see a screening of What Is It, and you got to get a signed copy of Rat Catching.
He signed quite a bit. He signed quite a few things for me. He signed a copy of Rat Catching. I had him sign my River's Edge DVD, my Willard DVD, and my CD. I have his album on CD, which he also signed.
Now, I was always fascinated by this car that his scene partner here, Lawrence Monason, who I also really like too. A lot of people know him from Last American Virgin. But this car is so weird because it's like, what is this car where they're just sitting, their heads are hanging out of the back of this car? Was it one of those station wagons that had the giant like roll down back window?
Yeah, I guess it is. It is really strange. I wonder that too because it almost looks like they're in like a bed essentially of the car. But yeah,
there's like no seats back there. But then I'm like, well, that back window is like curved, so like how would the window roll up? And I was like, did they just bust out the window of this car just to be able to film this scene? It's very fascinating. I would love to ride in a car like that with just my head sticking out of the back of the car like that. But yeah, it's kind of weird here, and like not to disparage any of the other actors here, but it's like pretty much with this group of teens, wouldn't you say that the two guys like are pretty much the only ones that really get ample screen time to develop their characters?
Yeah, the only ones that have an impact. Yeah. Also, by the way, this is a very oddly placed cemetery, and just strange that the town decided to give Pamela Voorhees such a prominent headstone and such prominent placement on the cemetery. You can read it from the road.
Maybe that was just easier so everybody could easy access so people could piss on it when they drove by a truck.
Yeah. Maybe they knew it'd become a tourist attraction.
Yeah. So I guess we have a 50-50 like cast of the teens here. Three of them I've never really seen before. Another three, obviously, we have Crispin Glover, we have Lawrence Monason, and then we have the beautiful Judy Aronson, who a lot of people are going to know from the first American Ninja movie, from Weird Science. Just amazing that she still looks like this to this day. It's very weird. She must have a picture of Dorian Gray in her closet or whatever. But yeah, did you hear the funny story about this lady? She was named Fat Girl in the script, and they're like, "Oh, that's mean." Like when we cast it, they made like an extra version of the script that said Hitchhiker or something else, and then the casting director just accidentally gave her the script that said Fat Girl, and like the Joe Zito was like super embarrassed, and then she was like, "Don't worry about it. I know I'm coming in to read it for the Fat Girl."
That's sad to hear, but
it is.
It is a memorable death, and it's actually a memorable character. Like so, it's one of those like scenes and deaths that I always remember from the franchise, and I love actually. One thing I like about a lot of these early Friday the 13th is they do make the most out of small little characters like that. If they're gonna give them like a feature death scene, and I always remember like the hitchhiking sign with like "fuck you" on the back. You know, it is a memorable part. So
because there was a pretty attractive hitchhiker in part one, and nobody remembers her. They always remember the girl who ate a banana and got the knife in her throat and all that.
I have to say, as we watch them kind of goof around and hug each other in the kitchen, I do really like this family dynamic in this movie as well. I think up to this point we've only had groups of kids together, and I always thought this was like one of the best decisions of part 4 is to put a family in the mix and have a family dynamic that's going on. Obviously, we do have the horny kids at the next house over. Yeah. But to have the single mom with the two children, I think just adds something to it. And obviously, the more you can have it seem like a real town that's not just camp counselors and not just, that element, always for the better for me.
Also, too, what I really love about the Jarvis family, well, first of all, I guess we got to mention there's Tommy Jarvis, the young son, Trish Jarvis, the teenage sister. And there's Mom Jarvis, who a lot of people claim Stifler's mom was the first MILF in American cinema.
Oh, no,
but yeah, no, it was Mom Jarvis, Mrs. Jarvis.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's ever explained where the dad is or what happened, you know. But the one thing I thought was cool, like you said, Trev, about kind of fleshing out this world a little bit, is they actually are not there to be a horny, beer-guzzling family. They live out there.
Yeah, like, no, that's what I like. Yeah. Yep.
And did you know about the house situation between the two houses, Trev?
Tell me what you mean, and I'll tell you if I knew.
So the Jarvis house is a real house that still is there to this day. It's in Topanga Canyon. The other house where the horny teens are, there's actually a fake house that they temporarily built for the movie. So, and it's kind of funny because there's only one shot, and it's like so dark and rainy you can't even really tell. Like they put a shot in the movie, and I'll show it to you later on when it happens, Trev. But they finally like they were like so worried that they were going to get in trouble with the director and the writer. They're like, we could have built this house anywhere, but we made them build it next to the real house, and it costs a lot more money to do that as compared to like just doing it on a stage or something. So they're like, we have to put a shot in the movie where it slowly pans from one house to the next house, so we can at least justify putting the houses together. Because like and they pretty much do for the first 3/4 of the movie. They just through cutting back and forth. That house across the street technically could be anywhere, and be faked. You know what I mean? And supposedly, I did see a video. Somebody went through that house like recently, like like the last 12 years or so. It pretty much looks the same. Like I'm sure it's probably worth like $1 billion now, because like all houses.
I mean, if I lived in it, I would make it look exactly the same. Yeah. And then I would just charge dumb horror fans to come spend the night there.
You can make so much money, Trev, because according to Joe Zito, He went in the house many years later, and like 20 plus years later, and he said there's still in the woodwork there's still chunks out where they hit it with the machete. So
yeah. Now I got to ask you, Goat.
Yeah.
I know you were with me in being quite a fan of Corey Feldman, child performer, and even
Yes.
a teen performer. But his performance in the watching the girl disrobe scene, what do you think of this? Is this how you would react as a kid when you get to see boobs for the first time? Would you just flip out and jump up and down on the bed?
Yeah. I think they should have done that thing where like they cut to like a stunt like little person in the pajamas and had him like do a backflip and have him flip so high that like his head goes through the roof. You know what I mean?
If they had already been doing like scary movies like in this time period, that's probably like what would have been the scene parodying this.
That's my favorite part, when he rears back and he kicks his legs up.
Kicks his legs up. Yeah. But here's the nice touch here. So like again, I like small moments in movies, and I like the mom's reaction when she realizes he's watching this, and she's not mad about it. She just thinks it's kind of cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a situation like that when you was a kid, when you saw through a window?
Not at my place. My buddy lived in a house where there was a window in the upstairs hallway that overlooked into the neighbor's backyard, which had a pool. And there was when we were younger, there was the daughter who lived over there was in her teens, and she would often go swimming in like her bikini. And I'm not gonna lie, there was definitely times where we were looking out the window like, wait, what?
Sure.
And definitely hoping like, hey, maybe she'll decide to skinny dip, which of course she never did, because why would she? It's a suburban neighborhood. But yeah, so like I never. The view from my childhood bedroom was just to like the siding of the house next door. Nothing interesting going on.
I think this butt shot is a homage to part 2, right? Like,
well, it's because it's a staple, right? But yeah, it's definitely a homage to Kristen Baker, who I think when we watched part 2 is to me maybe the hottest Friday the 13th girl.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have a much creepier version of the bedroom window story. Was when I was like probably like about 9 years old, my buddies claimed like, oh, there's this house up the street, and there's like, it's like the last one on the street, so there's woods next to it, and like we go there every day and we watch this girl get changed in this window, and like this went on for a couple weeks, and I didn't believe it, like I just didn't believe it, and they're like, oh, we're gonna go watch that girl and blah blah blah, and I was like what? I was like, I gotta see this. So we go in the woods and we look, and lo and behold, there is a house with a window that's open, and there is a girl who starts to get changed, and then suddenly looks out of nowhere, turns around, looks out the window, and then we all run away. And I'm like, I didn't get to see anything at all, but I'm like, I can't believe that like really happens in real life. You're like,
yeah,
but it does.
I was just thinking to go back a second. You asked if the butt shot was an homage to part two, which you're probably right. But do you think that the original butt shot in part two, and then this is all an homage to the famous tracking shot in Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Like, is that
Oh.
the butt shot to like begin all horror movie butt shots?
It's hard to say because I feel like this one was a little more true to the homage, whereas like part two kind of seemed like a little more just like look at this butt, look at this butt. But yeah, I think you could be right because it always takes place in like a wooded area, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I never understood like really this point of like why this girl like was like, oh, I'm going back. Did she just not want a skinny dip or whatever they were going to do?
I guess, but there's something about this sequence that I actually think, like, in terms of like I don't know if it's just a happy accident or whatever, but how hazy it looks here.
Yeah,
Like this feels real, like real in a way that Friday the 13th doesn't often. Because I've definitely walked through the forest when it feels like that, early morning.
yeah,
There's like this kind of haze, and then you cut from that to like here now we're back into like this just the sunshine and everything.
yeah.
There's something so creepy about how real and how early morning, and I've definitely been in the woods and felt freaked out at times like that, where it has that kind of like little fog and yeah.
Like even though it's real life, it looks like a horror movie kind of.
Yeah.
So I guess there's a skinny dipping scene here. I guess is it okay if I go off topic? I think last time we got a skinny dipping scene was part two, and I think I went on my cuties rant. But I'm actually getting caught up. I'm finally getting caught up on Failure to Franchise, Trev, your hit show.
Thank you.
And I finished Speed. Last one I listened to last night was Speed Racer. And your co-host on Failure to Franchise, Chris, he likes to kind of nudge you about how old you are. And he said, Trev, you're quite a bit older than me, so you must have seen The Matrix in the theater. And you clarified, well, I was old enough to actually go to see it in the theater, but I didn't. I just didn't get around to it.
Yeah.
I'm going to one-up you, Trev. Not only was I old enough to see and did see Matrix in the theater, this is going to blow your mind how ancient I am. I was old enough to go see Bound in a theater.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would have been too. Like, so, like, one thing I think we've talked about this before, if not in like one of these commentaries, but definitely really, is like one thing that made me such a movie fan is my dad was a huge movie fan.
Yeah.
And we went to the movies pretty much every weekend, and my dad never had any compunctions about taking me to see R-rated movies. And the next thing was because of how my parents were just very, very clear with me early on about what is fiction, what is not, what are movies, what are not. I feel like I was always, now, because I'll walk into a theater and you kind of dread when they're young kids.
Yeah.
But I was always a young kid who was just there to see the movie, and so my dad was taking me to see very, very violent or R-rated movies with nudity when I was young, and that's perfectly fine. I got it, understood it. So yeah, I probably could have went and seen Bound with him. I guess I'm glad I didn't. That would have been maybe more awkward than normal. But,
yeah.
But no, I definitely remember coming across Bound on cable and watching it a lot, for sure.
Yeah, I saw it with my dad, but it was like in a small art house theater, so it wasn't like it wasn't like we probably weren't the only two people in there, but it felt like we were because it was just like nobody was there to see that movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah,
this movie is full of so many things where if I was ever teaching like a class on slasher screenwriting, right, of just because with the slasher it's always a very simplistic story, and people say that these movies are so dumb and so basic, and to a level they're right. But this movie is a great example of peppering in small details that bring it a little bit more to life and make it feel more real. And like one of them here is the idea of the car breaking down and the teenage sister not knowing what to do, but the young brother and her just like relying on him to fix the car. And them acting like he's probably done this before. Like those are the things that make these characters feel real, even in a movie like this.
Yeah, like it's funny too because it's kind of like an '80s whiz kid staple too. Because like I'm in my 40s now, and if my car broke down, I just would call it AAA.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, like back then, like they would always have kids fixing shit, like hard to fix stuff.
No, this is the era of. That's why Carl Femme was able to make an entire career out of it. The '80s is obviously the era of the precocious kid in movies.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's kind of funny because I don't know how you felt when you sat down to watch this, Trev, but like, I mean, this is a movie I've seen at the very bare minimum a dozen times, probably closer to 15 or more. And for some reason, it's just like anything, the mood you're in or anything, like it was a long work day, like I said, or we're having work done, so there was hammering all day. I needed something just to calm my nerves the other night, and this was that movie. This was like comfort food to me. And I gotta admit, like, they really keep Jason, like, yeah, other than killing the paramedics and the hitchhiker, well, not the paramedics, but the morgue people and the hitchhiker, like, early on, I kind of like really settled into a real comfort food, like easy enjoyment of the setup of this movie, the first 30 minutes of this movie. And like,
I mean, I've always said this is. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just like, I really wasn't like, I wasn't sitting there hoping Jason would show up. I would be fine if he kind of didn't show up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, because you could easily see this just being like a comedy about like these crazy kids across the way from like the button down family and like the young son trying to like sneak a peek, and that's a movie that exists too in another universe. But yeah, no, I've always, this is my favorite franchise. I believe I've alluded to both on here and on other podcasts, and this is a comfort food franchise for me. Like even the entries I'm not the biggest fan of, any one of them I can put on any time and just kind of get lost in it. And yeah, they don't necessitate like a lot of your attention or like a lot of your brain power, but there's just something that's eternally entertaining about them for me. Even though there's like a lot of similarities and sameness, especially in like the first, the run of about 5 films or so. But yeah, I get it. Like whenever I put one of these on, I just kind of go to a happy place a little bit.
Now, I don't know about you, Trev, because, by the way, just real quick, what was the first Friday movie you got to see in the theater?
The first one I saw in the theater was Jason Goes to Hell.
Okay. The first one I saw was 7. So I saw 7 onwards. Whereas like this one, I wasn't really aware of these in a weird way, even though we went to the movies all the time, because my dad just had no interest. Like they were like too low brow for him, like whatever. And like which is weird because like he took me to all the Nightmare on Elm Street films. That was my favorite franchise. But like I really wasn't into Friday the 13th, other than I would watch the edited versions on like broadcast TV, and then that would be like a big topic. Like I remember Part 2 being edited on broadcast TV a lot on Sunday afternoons, and everybody would watch it and talk about it and stuff. And everybody like, Jason did this or Jason did that, like the next day at school or whatever. But which that's kind of like hard to imagine now too. That like, because I remember the Warriors. I know we talked about when we did the Warriors, but the Warriors was a big movie like that too, where and they always ran on like the local independent station. It was like before even like Fox was around as a network or anything. And like it's weird to think that young kids at elementary school would be talking about R-rated movies, but not even like in a cool way of like my dad rented this and I saw this. Like we were like, basically geeking out over edited TV versions.
No, I mean obviously, again, I apologize for reiterating anything we talked about before. But it's been a long time since we did Friday the 13th Part 3 or whatever. But I'm a Monster Vision kid. I was exposed to a lot of these early horror movies through the Joe Bob show on TNT, where they were definitely edited. And he would talk about that. He would make jokes about how he'd say how many boobs were in the beginning, but he'd say, of course, TNT made us edit them out. He would flat out admit that scene we weren't seeing everything. So I saw a lot of these probably for the first time that way. And I was also just trying to think of my entire generation and my friends. I bet none of us saw like Friday the 13th in like the right order.
Right.
It was like it's just entire. You saw whichever ones came on TV, and you're just kind of piecing it together. Not that the order matters that much, but yeah, I'm sure it was like just a hodgepodge for me. By the way, just really quickly, how would you feel if you were the mom? And this can go into a dark place here when we think of the real stories about Corey Feldman and his experiences in Hollywood.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. I just thought of the weirdness. How would you feel if you were a mom and your young son came home with an old man in his 20s and just immediately, without even introducing him, just starts pulling him up to the bedroom? That mom I'm surprised she was like that okay with that scenario. Yeah, like we need to talk about that character because that character was a fan favorite when I was a kid. But right now something.
But maybe we should. Yeah, we can't. We'll come back to that. Yeah, we got to table that.
Something amazing in the world of cinema, and I can't believe we're already to this point in the film. But this is just like, this is the character. Which, by the way, like I didn't even know this for a long time, but Crispin Glover's character name is Jimmy, and he has his own special feature on the Blu-ray called Jimmy's Dead Dance Moves. And yeah, this is... How would you describe this dancing that Crispin Glover's doing here?
I don't know if there is any adequate description for it. It's just something that has to be experienced. But of course, you know the story, right? About on set, it was AC/DC, correct? That they were playing?
So yeah, supposedly, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then they could not... So like what you see him dancing to is meant to be AC/DC, but they ultimately couldn't get the rights to that or never intended to. and they just dubbed in whatever this song is, and obviously it does not quite match up. But not that dance would make much sense for AC/DC either. It's entirely Crispin Glover, no matter what.
The only AC/DC I could think of, and I would have to even look it up, check to see if that song came out. I think it was, but because he's doing so herky jerky, was it? Maybe he was dancing the Back in Black, how it's like dun 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 dun. Yeah, you know what I mean. But then again, like I think that AC/DC story is kind of like, because they were talking about it on the commentary track, and Joe Zito claims, and again, how would he know? To quote Johnny Depp, how would he know? Joe Zito claims that Crispin was doing that dance in the clubs of Hollywood at the time, and it's like,
I mean, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Right. So I'm just like, okay, I don't think they were playing AC/DC in the clubs of Hollywood in the early 80s, so it's like, I think that dance was either his dance, or I think Crispin came up with it on the spot, and he kind of BS'd Joe Zito and be like, no, this is how I dance all the time, dude. You know what I mean? Because supposedly...
The thing is, people, like... Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, according to the director, Joe Zito, like, they blew a lot of takes because the other crew, not the crew, but the cast, they were cracking up in the shot because of the way he was dancing, so...
Well, they can crack up all they want, but the point I was about to make is I know it gets laughed at a lot, people make jokes about it, there's gifs of it and everything. But go back and, like, let's say that's true, that Crispin Glover was, like, actually doing that in clubs. Go back and look at Crispin Glover's, like, dating history. Look at the women he's dated.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you are, fairly handsome and you just have a level of confidence in yourself and go out and do something that silly, I think people do respond well to it. And the movie, and I like that the movie plays it that way. Like, the girl is amused by it. Like, she starts dancing along, like, obviously doing her own thing, but they don't play it like, she's not like, what is he doing? She finds it funny and endearing. And you know what? Jimmy actually is a very, very likable character for everything. Ted says about him being a dead fuck. It's like, no, like of course they would like him. Yeah, that's that opening scene where they're in the back of the thing. I was always fascinated the way Ted does the computer thing on the case of the beer, and I was like, it was like a Mandela effect where I swear he did that like 2 or 3 times throughout the film, and then you watch it, it's like, no, he just did the whole computer bit. He sold it really good, Lawrence Monason, but I was always fascinated by the sound he makes when he does the fake typing. And it wasn't until this viewing that it dawned on me that, like, oh, you dumbass, they just looped in, like, real type keyboard sounds, computer keyboard sounds. Like, because I was always like, how did he get his fingers to hit the boxes to sound like that? You know what I mean? Because it has, like, that plasticky click sound when he did it. Now, this was the only scene that, like, didn't really track for me because, yeah, Crispin was dancing with the girl, and, like, he kind of lost his girl. But he's, like, they cut away to another short scene of... Tommy's sister, and I think Rob is his name or whatever. But then they come back and, like, Crispin seems like he's, like, too down. Like, he's too discouraged already. Where he was, like, doing pretty good. He was dancing with the girl and everything. And then, yeah, it got broken for a second. So I was just thinking there had to be some, like, intermediate scenes there. Because it didn't make sense that, like, he was sulking so hardcore all of a sudden. Yeah. This definitely seems like the type of movie where they might have filmed a lot with these people. And then you just decide to edit, like, okay, what stuff is fun? What stuff do we need? Yeah. And then just you take what you want.
Yeah, I don't think it's an accident that this movie is like literally exactly 90 minutes long. I think there was probably a target there, a hard target for the length. But yeah, it's kind of weird because it's like there was the opening part where, his buddy Ted claims that Jimmy Crispin Glover lost his girlfriend, which, by the way, he was with a girl before. It's not like he's like the last American virgin, so to speak. Like, it's actually Ted, which is funny. That's another thing too. Is I always thought Ted was like a big stud when I watched this movie as a kid, but now when you watch it, you realize Ted is actually probably the virgin. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he's the loser. Yeah.
And so yeah, it's like that whole thing of like, other than that part where Ted calls Jimmy a dead fuck, and then Crispin kind of goes, "Oh, dead fuck," and he kind of takes it to heart like too much. Other than that, Crispin's pretty studly in this. Like I was surprised like how handsome he looked, because he doesn't have like the greased down George McFly hair or nothing, and his voice isn't super like whiny or like he plays a pretty straight ahead guy in this movie. Mm-hmm.
How awkward I don't know, like, it's something I think about now more when I watch it than I did when I was a kid, but how awkward it would be to be in this house and just see this kind of interaction going down we're seeing with this one girl just so blatantly in front of everybody, just trying to steal this guy away from the girl he came with. It's like, it's just so, this is like one of the bitchiest characters in the franchise, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, well, she is, and it's just like, it's almost like a little too hard to believe in all reality of it. But it's also like, if I was that guy, like, I'm sorry, like that's a choice I would never make. send this girl away to, do whatever. Like I get the allure of New Tang is powerful, but it ain't.
I think they want to play it like, well, it's like the twins thing, but it's like, yeah, but just because they're twins doesn't mean you're going to be with both of them.
Right.
And individually, yeah, they're not. I think you would stick with your original choice. But
yeah, they should have probably flip flopped some of the casting and had some of the regular. Which, by the way, they say the screenwriter was like, oh, like it was really important to me that we don't get like whatever professional models. These should look like normal girls. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think the girls are still pretty damn good looking in this movie, top to bottom.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think like the first movie is the one where people look real, and then after that it kind of moves into Hollywood territory.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, Trev, because I went through the commentary on this, and I went through some behind the scenes stuff, and this story got glossed over, but like it wasn't a big deal. But back in the pre-internet days, or maybe early internet days, this was always one of the behind-the-scenes things I always heard about of the filming of the scene.
This is the story I always think about, because it makes you respect Ted White so much.
Yeah.
As a performer, it's Ted White who played Jason in this. So apparently the story goes like this Joseph Zito wanted to do the scene, and this actress having a skinny dip in the cold water at night was just freezing. And was kind of begging for them to kind of wrap up and wrap her up, and he didn't want to. And Ted White was like furious, and he was very, very protective of her and of like the young cast in general, I've heard. But apparently, he kind of put his foot down, and as a big, tough Hollywood icon stuntman, I think kind of got his way, right?
Yeah.
Kind of say like we need to like give this girl some attention and get her wrapped up. And yeah, I always like that story, just because it's like, it's nice to think when the people playing Jason are actually like kind of decent people as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like our man Joe Zito kind of like, oh, it was freezing and everybody was bundled up in big winter coats, but she was a trooper, and I'm like, that's not the story I always heard.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do 30 years later? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ted White, like, we haven't talked about Ted White quite yet, but obviously one of the early like iconic Jasons. And I think it's interesting that like he feels like, you get the sense too, his like relationship with this film is kind of like, it's kind of all over the place, because he definitely seems like someone, you hear like he was kind of very embarrassed to be playing this part and thought like it was kind of below him. But I know he did go on to do conventions and kind of accepted his lot in life as a Jason. I hope in his life he got to have like some level of like pleasure over knowing that he was like one of the early like kind of favorite Jasons, and definitely the one who I think set the standard for like what it was not Tom Sweet, what Kane Hodder would do later. Yeah.
So with that kill with her in the boat, Trev, do you think like, because again, I mean, me and Trev were old, but we're not that freaking old. Was this like a thing, that style of kill of the piercing? Like, I'm immediately thinking of like when Kevin Bacon got it through the throat, like that slow piercing, and seeing the spear or knife or whatever they use in each particular scene come through the person. Do you think that was something they were intentionally replicating in each of these movies, try to have a kill like that?
I don't know if they were replicating it because they were trying to pay homage to the previous ones, as much as they were. It was they figured out how to do it, and so it was like an easy one to do every time. Like I think it became a go-to because once that template was set, it was like, oh, we could do this again, and it's effective every time. Every time you see it, it works. The trick is trying to think of like a new place to have it happen, I suppose.
It's kind of funny because going back to what you're talking about, Trev, with Ted White, and he didn't really know how to take it. Like, I know in the past on this podcast we talked a lot about because of what happened with Star Wars recently, the idea of exquisite corpse filmmaking, where it's like just the next movie comes along, a whole new team comes along and kind of does it. But I mean, Friday the 13th is like legit the best case scenario of exquisite corpse filmmaking, because I mean they went as far as to like, other than once they finally got a hold of Kane Hodder, like they like all these early ones, like there was even a different guy playing Jason every time, and I never understood like why. You know what I mean? Like, why restart over with the character in every film when the character is what people are paying to go see? You know what I mean?
And even this one, like I think Ted White was already into his 50s when he made this.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I know he was already like a well-established, well-respected stuntman, but it surprised me you would cast someone in their 50s to play Jason,
Right.
like just for what the role demands. Obviously, it didn't matter. He did the role, and he did it excellently. But yeah, the fact that they weren't trying to find someone young to take that part, and then you get to keep utilizing them.
Yeah, I mean, just even to the point where it's just like, even if you're not really thinking like oh, we gotta sign somebody to a 5-picture deal to be Jason. Like, I get why you wouldn't really think that way either. But like, I would just be scared as a filmmaker, like, or really not even a filmmaker, but as a producer, I would just be like, like, you don't recast Jigsaw in part 3, you know what I mean? Like, it's always Tobin Bell or whatever. It's like,
but I mean, that's a face and a personality, right? So you can kind of get away with it. It's like Michael Myers too, right? There's a lot of different Michael Myers, and I also don't know. Like, I mean, I've read the books, like I said, watched the interviews, but I don't know how much these early performers were fighting to come back as Jason.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was a very. This franchise was always a black eye for Paramount. There was a level of like disrespectability to it. A lot of actors have talked about how just being in one of these would make it harder for them to get auditions. So I don't know necessarily that anyone was like Ted White. I don't think was like very upset that he wasn't asked to come back in part 5 necessarily.
I mean, yeah, it probably was a lot of torture for not a lot of money, because like Joe Zito talks about, like, they would fight him budget wise on everything. Like, do you have to break this window? Do you have to use this big of a tent? Like when the guy's camping in the woods. But okay, now I got a question for you here, Trev. This guy, I'm blanking on his name, but he finds his girlfriend, he swims back to the dock, right? He gets a harpoon gun into the crotch. Jason lifts him up, and then he shoots the harpoon gun. We have never had a harpoon gun set up in this film at all. Are we supposed to believe, because keep in mind, we saw it in the kind of rerun, the recap at the beginning. Are we supposed to believe that could possibly be Shelley's spear gun?
Oh, maybe, perhaps. Like it was just but like where would that have been though?
But we're talking about a freshwater lake, Trev. It's like, who uses a spear gun in a freshwater lake? Like that's well, like an ocean thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, so there are 3 to my memory. Correct me if I'm wrong. There are 3 spear guns used because there's the Shelley spear gun. There's this one, and then it kind of comes back and Jason Takes Manhattan. There's a spear gun early on the boat where he gets the mask from the couple. Remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know. Like apparently, people on Spring and Crystal Lake just have spear guns for some reason.
But at least the last one that you said, like, at least that was because somebody was dressing up, pretending to be Jason. So it's like maybe they knew, like, oh, one of the murder weapons he knew was a spear gun. This is taking place like 24 hours after part 3. Like nobody knew shit like to have a spear gun nearby. So we need to talk about this character. I want to say his name, Rob. Yeah. We would, like, my friends when I was like 10, 11, 12, or actually older than that, probably like 12, 13, 14. My buddies during summer break, they always love to every summer like go through the Friday the 13th franchise again, and also too because there's still kind of new movies coming out in the franchise. So it's like one of the things we all gravitated to was this guy that was hunting Jason, because as we know, he's looking for his sister who's gone. Because apparently, from what people say, parts 2, 3, and 4 are kind of supposed to happen in the same week, or roughly the same week.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the Jason Hunter guy here, Rob?
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I think the same thing. When I was a kid, I thought that was like a really cool idea, and I think it is a good idea, and it's a good idea for like a hero of a film. This is what I meant earlier when I said the timeline doesn't always necessarily work out, because it's the idea of him already being out looking for Jason, and this idea, like, I feel like not enough time has passed continuity wise for that to really make sense, for him to already be this like Avenger coming to look for, like, that's what kind of bothers me about it. And I said this in the episode we did on Failure to Franchise, and I don't know where I'm not sure I know where you fall on the remake, go if you're like a fan of it, but the character that Jared Padalecki plays in that is obviously very heavily influenced by Rob. I always feel like that was like a better version of it. I think the remake did that character better than we see here. So I like the idea, but yeah, I don't think he doesn't end up being like one of the more compelling characters, especially since by climax of the film, Tommy Jarvis obviously steals the spotlight and is the character you remember coming out of it. So it's good idea, not entirely well executed, I'd say.
Yeah, like I think I would have respected more. And by the way, like Joe Zito said originally he was supposed to have all this like night vision gear and stuff, and he was supposed to be more like he was like looking and like, searching the woods, and like he said the props that they made for the night vision goggles and his other gear was so crappy, they just ended up giving him basic camping gear and a gun, basically. So, like, yeah, if you would have took that gun, like the machete, you can argue, like, yeah, he needs it for cutting down whatever in the woods. But if you made it more like where he was just going out with camping gear to look for his sister, like a missing persons type thing, I think I would buy a little more, because, like, yeah, they play it. It's hard to say, like, because I don't know which way they're trying to go with it, Trev. Because, like you said, like, is he an avenging character? He wants to kill Jason. Does he even know Jason exists? It's kind of like, you know, he has the newspaper clippings and stuff, but it's like, I don't know, like, we really don't know where his headspace is at quite, you know, in this one.
I will say one thing I like more now than I did when I was a kid, because when you're a kid, you tend to gravitate towards wanting more traditional storytelling at all times.
Yeah.
You know, like, so you're like, and I think when I was a kid, I always thought it was like weird and like disappointing that you set this character up and it's like, okay, he's here looking for Jason. He's the one that set up as like, this is the guy. If any character is capable enough to take on Jason, it's probably this guy. And then he's just immediately dispatched later.
Yeah.
And like now as an older viewer, I actually love that. I love like the irony of that, of like how it's like you set this character up and then he's just taken out. And I really like when movies do that now. So I have come around on that. I think it's funny funny in a dark comedy way to like be like, here he is, this is the hero, and it's like, nope, never mind. Actually, it's down to this teenage girl and her young brother to take care of it because he's just immediately gone.
So, I was going to ask you, Trev, because like I said, the other night I was just enjoying this, taking it in for what it was with the setup and the characters. And, like, we're at the point now where people are starting to really get dispatched. We're, like, close to the halfway point in the kills of our cast. And, do you kind of, like, when you're watching these and the killing start, I mean, obviously we've seen these movies a million times. We know everybody's going to get killed. We know who lives and who doesn't. But do you ever, like, get a little bummed out when either the killing starts or like the one character you liked gets killed? You know what I mean?
I think we have actually touched on this briefly in some of the other commentaries. I have a memory of us talking about how, you know, it's an effective Friday the 13th and they're doing their job well if there's at least a couple deaths where you really, because I obviously said there's your slasher films, we're here to see the murders, but I want to feel about at least some of them. And I think occasionally they do that. I think in part two, we both talked about, is it character names, like whatever. Maybe it's Mark, the guy in the wheelchair, and the girl that is going to sleep with him.
Yeah,
like
I
those
think it
deaths
is Mark.
really,
yeah,
I think those deaths actually really bother me.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like she's so sweet with him, and you're like really rooting for the two of them. And like here, the one that gets to me is Jimmy. I think like Jimmy's death actually hurts. You know, not, and I don't mean like the brutality of it, but I mean just like you like that character and you feel attached to him. There are certain characters that are just cannon fodder where you're like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, like I wouldn't say I'm disappointed with the killing start because that's what you're here for. But actually, I want the deaths to matter and I want to feel something.
I gotta say, you know, going exactly along those lines, Trev, is every time I watch this movie, like every time, and this time is no exception, is like I do get bummed when they kill like Jimmy, who's like my favorite character and stuff. But it's more than even that when it comes to the Jarvis mom. Like when she wanders out and basically gets killed. I mean, she does get killed, but they chose not to show it for whatever reason. I've never felt this way in any other Friday the 13th movie. I almost feel like this is crossing a line.
Taking the mom out?
Yeah, killing the mom. Like what is that? Like you just make Trish and Tommy like orphans now? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, we'll talk about this when we get near the end, but I think to whatever they were thinking, I think they were probably using that to set up a move they didn't make, which I'm sure you know what I'm alluding to. Yeah. But yeah, I think that is part of it. I think it does bother me that we don't actually like get to, I know there's like the deleted scene with finding her body in the tub and everything, but it kind of But
even that's a dream sequence though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it seems oddly like anticlimactic, like the stuff with the mom. Like that's the only thing that kind of really bothers me. I'm also surprised by the restraint that this movie, because you said like the mom is like a total MILF.
Yeah. And
I'm surprised by the restraint. Again, this is like the 90 minutes only to play with, I think, but that they never had anything with like any of the horny guys over this house seeing the mom and like trying to like come on to like the mom. I'm surprised it didn't go in that direction.
Yeah, like I kind of thought that too, because like when the one guy Rob comes over, like he has a little bit of a romantic interest with Trish, but they don't have much time to establish it storyline wise. But I was just always curious because I mean, he's probably a little bit older than Trish too. Like if you're the man walking in that situation and you're looking at these two women, assuming the mom is single, like which way do you go with that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess it depends on your age, right?
Yeah.
Which seems like the more viable option at that point.
Yeah.
Or do you like want to be this kid? Do you want to be Tommy's like older brother, or do you want to have to be his like dad?
Yeah,
You know?
that's true. I think in this scenario, if I was Rob, I would take either or whatever was available to me.
Yeah. You can't. There's no going wrong either way.
Yeah.
Kimberly Beck, also one of the more attractive heroines of the series, for sure.
Which, by the way, this blue dress, there's like over the deleted scenes, like she does some commentary too for some reason, and this was actually a man's shirt she's wearing through the whole finale of the movie. She said she hated it, and I think they just did it for continuity wise because she gets really mudded up, and they had to go through a lot of them, you know. So I think just to make it easier, they just gave her a man's like really long shirt, and they just cinched it up around her waist with a belt. And I was like, I've never noticed that, you know, as many times as I watched this movie, I never noticed that she's just wearing a man's shirt.
It's a good look, though.
Yeah.
Even like earlier when she was in the car, like I like one of the things that always strikes me as like super sexy with girls is when they do just wear a long shirt, kind of like no pants underneath, and not to get creepy, but I mean we are watching a Friday the 13th
Well,
movie.
it's very, I would say like it's like this scene where she's going through the woods and you see it, like it's very like almost a little too fashion forward for even a Friday movie, because like we're just, especially in this era of the early Friday movies, we're just used to seeing goobers and cut off jean shorts and tank tops, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this was the tent that Joe Zito wanted, a slightly larger tent so he could get some better shots, and they were like, no, like to go for the bigger tent is extra $150. So he had that's why these such an extreme close up on these little tent shots.
Now we're not there yet, but I want to preview because I just want to see before, because I'm not sure, just in case I forget to talk about when I get there. This film does have one of my all-time favorite Friday the 13th death scenes, which I never really see anyone else talk about or like references one of their favorites. And I wonder if just by saying that, Goat, if you know what I'm alluding to, because it's like, to me, it's maybe in my top 5, and I feel like it's not necessarily often like a go-to favorite of everyone. We haven't got to it yet. Do you think you have an idea which one I'm referring to?
I'm trying to think. I mean, my favorite of this movie is, as much as I hate to see him die, my favorite is Jimmy, but I feel like everybody talks about that death scene.
Yeah, okay. Well, I won't say it yet.
Yeah.
I'll point it out when we get it.
You're going to surprise me. But there is one, and just in case it's I'll wait till whatever. I'll wait for you to surprise me. But there is one scene where it's very not graphic at all, but I love it for realism and creepiness sake. But so let's talk about Friday the 13th deaths in general, Trev. And again, this is the 4th time we did this, so we might have covered this on past shows. I apologize if we have. What is your opinion of, like, and obviously these movies underwent massive censorship by the MPAA, but like, what's your thought about like when characters basically just walk off a screen and then like we kind of see a shadow and we don't really see them die? You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I mean with the mom. Like, I kind of it is a slasher film. You're here to see the deaths. The only time I like it is if they do pay it off by like an interesting discovery of their body later. Like, I think if you're specifically doing it for the purposes of us wondering about what happened to that character and then the reveal of that later. But if you're just doing it to like save on effects, or you had to cut them, like obviously the one that's hurt the most by that is part 7, which is like entirely edited down and not very graphic at all. Like, then it kind of gets on your nerves, because that, I mean, as gross as it is, or as weird as it is, sorry, Siskel and Ebert, we are here to see the deaths, and sometimes it feels like a little bit of a cop out. But I think the other thing about Friday the 13th is you usually can't complain too much, because you might have like 1 or 2 of those, but then you're getting like 7 or 8 other graphic deaths, you know. So
yeah,
it is what it is, I suppose.
Look at this Chad Jimmy here. Like, who would have thought this was George McFly? He's such a hunk in this one. I think it's funny that the stag film they're watching is like basically just women like dressed up in different ethnicity costumes parading around naked.
But Ted is like way too amused by it also.
Yeah.
Like, he's just been sitting here watching it for like an hour, and he's still just like laughing his head off at it.
Yeah, he seems like somebody who maybe has some repressed urges, and you know, his whole thing about women is just a smokescreen. Like when we were watching, here it comes here. We do get a little bit of McFly here, though, when he's screaming for Ted to tell him where the corkscrew is. Did you pick up on that?
I've heard, and I don't have confirmation myself because I didn't bring anything for this movie, but I've heard tell that when you meet Chris McGlover and have him sign stuff, he's that's one cool thing about him too, is he's more than happy to sign stuff for this film, and he's not embarrassed about being in this.
Yeah.
Oh man, what a great death.
Yeah, I know.
But I've heard that he will sign, if you bring a poster or something, he signs, "Hey Ted, where's the corkscrew?" Chris McGlover.
That's awesome. I would love to have it. Yeah, so that was obviously one of the great, like, whatever tricks of the reverse shot there. So they have a meat cleaver that's half carved out, and they just press it against Crispin's face, and they pull it away, but then they reverse the shot and make it look like... Now, Jason's going on a killing spree, because we just saw Ted, like, die, like, 4 seconds ago. And I have to say, like, this is probably my least favorite death scene in the whole movie, because it seems like, almost like, at this point, Jason is just teleporting around, like all of a sudden he's on, like, the trellis, you know what I mean?
Okay, here's the thing, Chris. This is the one I was talking about. This death scene
Really?
here, I love this. And I get what you mean about how he's just there, but look at, like, the brutality of this, like, of her just landing on the car and the windows smashing out, and like, it's a stunt performer, right? Like, that's not a dummy, like, how real that looks, and just, like, the simplicity of it. In like a series that is known for, like, very elaborate, very gory, bloody death scenes, the realism of that and just the simplicity of it and how painful it looks, I love that. I never see anyone else talk about the death scene, but I think that's, like, one of my top 5 Friday the 13th death scenes. I really love that. I don't disagree that it's weird that he's just suddenly up there, but just the visual of it, I think, is amazing.
See, I think that would be great if, like, we just didn't have the Jimmy scene, like, a second ago, or even if you, like, reverse the whatever, whereas, like, Jimmy goes downstairs and he's been watching through the window the whole time, and then he gets her, and then maybe later, you know, a couple minutes later he gets Jimmy, but, like, I was watching that this time and I was like, why the fuck is he crawling up on the roof all of a sudden when he was just down in the kitchen? You know what I mean? Like, so Trish finds out Rob's, like, whole mission of why he's really there. He's not really there to hunt bears in the woods of Crystal Lake. Again, I thought that was a mind-blowing storyline when I was 14, but it's not bad, but I don't know if they really sell it enough to make me buy it. You know what I mean?
Now, to go back to what you just said about, like, him just, like, teleporting and being on the roof, I wanted to ask you too. I was meant to ask this earlier, but this is a good time because not much is happening here. Of course, the general accepted knowledge of this franchise is always that it doesn't become supernatural until Part 6 with Jason Lives.
Yeah.
But have you often felt like that's kind of a cop-out statement, and that especially here in Part 4, Jason is already pretty much feeling like a supernatural character? I mean, like, how could his body be taken, unless you believe that these paramedics in this town are the worst paramedics in the world? Yeah. Like, they did not check for a pulse on him or anything. Like, he would have had to be dead to, like, go into the morgue at the hospital, right? So, like, and suddenly he's, like, kind of revived, and just the amount of damage he continues to take. I feel like they were already kind of moving into pretty much supernatural territory.
Yeah, as a kid, honestly, Trev, and I think Adam Green kind of elaborated on the whole Jason thing when he did Hatchet, and he made Victor Crowley a repeater, so to speak. Whereas, like, you can really kill Victor Crowley, but then he just reappears the next day. Like, when I was a kid, I actually took it to heart that Jason actually, like, his real form, like, him being a good person, like an actual real human being. I actually believe he did really, like, drown and die as a child. That's how I always took it as a kid. Because it's like, you watch these movies, I mean, he took an axe, like, to the front of his skull in the last movie. And he's like, he just shrugged it off. Like, there's no way, you know. And, like, the one thing, and maybe we'll get it, maybe we won't, who knows. But, like, I've always felt that with this, and I'm just so sick and tired of fucking Halloween going on for 30 movies and never introducing a supernatural element whatsoever, like, at all.
Well, I mean, we got the Cult of Thorn.
Yeah, but even that is just kind of more about controlling Michael, and it doesn't even really say that he's undead, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where, I mean, Jason. By the way, we get a dummy here. And I don't even know if it's really, like, was it necessary? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, probably not, but maybe they didn't know a better way to do it. Yeah. I will say to what you just mentioned, and I know you and I quite disagree on Halloween Kills. I think you actually like that one, whereas I did not.
You're a Halloween Kills hater?
Yeah, but for me, that was definitely like the cop out of like I thought the end. I because I remember hearing like they were gonna like there was an early talk that like oh the end does something like so shocking, and I want and I have heard like the initial cut that some people saw early on had a much more heavier insinuation that they're like no, there's no denying Michael Myers is like a supernatural character now.
Yeah.
And I think they chickened out and cut that out. And I thought that was what that movie needed was to say because I thought that that's what I convinced myself maybe foolishly to think what David Gordon Green was trying to do with his trilogy was make a trilogy that kind of like ends up reflecting like the entire series and like what everyone likes from the series like put into like 3 movies. And so I thought he was going to do a thing where it's like, yeah, the first one was like his homage to just like the simplicity of the first one, and now suddenly it's going to be like, no, now I'm segueing into we're saying he is a supernatural character, setting us up for like a batshit insane third entry, and then I think they just chickened out at the end, and so yeah, I'm with you in that. I think that series needs to push in that direction finally, even though they seem hesitant to do it.
I mean, it kind of is always loosely there in terms of like they always have him stay catatonic until Halloween night. Okay, what kind of mentally ill person just just because the day on the calendar, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I feel like these 2 characters here, and again, I'm blanking on their names, but these 2 characters here were the most shortchanged out of the group. Like they got the least screen time, and then they just kind of.
This guy looks like a young Robert Zadar.
Yeah, the girl's name is Sarah, and I forget this guy's name, but like, yeah, he does look like a young, more handsome Bobby Zadar. But yeah, they get shortchanged big time here. Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think about this kill? Like, considering Joe Zito did the Prowler, right? And the only redeeming quality of that is the shower kill. Mm-hmm. Why is this one so weak? Or do you think it's weak?
It is weak. I mean, compared to that, for sure, it is. It's not. It's definitely not a highlight because even you said these characters kind of shortchanged. That even goes to the kill here, but.
Okay, here we have. I wouldn't really say it's a homophobic joke. It's more of a prison joke about dropping the soap or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the reason I bring this up, because, I mean, fuck it, why not? We talk about horror movies. We talk about shit. We're not scared. There was a little bit of controversy with Halloween Kills that Michael Myers killed a gay couple. And people were like, oh, like that makes him, makes Michael Myers, I don't know even what you would say, I guess a bigot in some sense. Do you think Friday the 13th could handle, survive, not have a contract? Like, do you think Jason could get away with killing a like a teenage gay couple? It could 2 men, 2 women, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think he could for the same reason I hated that controversy with Halloween Kills. Like, I didn't like the movie, but that was such a dumb controversy because Michael Myers kills anyone. He's not upset that Big John and Little John, who, by the way, I did love them. Like, they were, I do like. See, that's the thing. I like when David Gordon Green indulges in very bizarre David Gordon Greenish stuff. Yeah. So I actually liked Big John, Little John. I thought they were. I like many other people. I found them to be very amusing and very funny. Yeah. And I actually was bummed that they died, but I did not look at it as a hate crime. I looked at it as Michael Myers doing what Michael Myers does. I don't think he cared if they were gay. So yeah, I think that's probably an important step, just like everything else. If we finally get our wish and somehow Friday the 13th comes back, come on, LeBron James, you're sleeping on the job here.
Oh God, yeah. Do we have to wait for you to retire from basketball or what?
There's no reason not to have a more like multicultural and more like kind of sexualities represented in the group of characters.
Yeah, it's like, to me too, especially from the viewpoint of the characters doing whatever, the murderer characters, the slashers. I don't even know if you look in the framework of both Jason and like Freddy Krueger will definitely know. Like Freddy Krueger will know if you're gay or straight,
and he will exploit it because he's an asshole.
Exactly.
That's the thing too. Yeah. Exactly.
Like Freddy, if Freddy knows you're a gay teen, like he'll like disguise himself as like the hottest guy in your school, and then you'll be making out with that guy, and then all of a sudden it'll be Freddy Krueger. Like he will, but like I don't even think like Michael Myers, or Jason Voorhees. I don't even think like the concept of inner human relationships, let alone like I don't think they grasp that really. Like, could you imagine the terrible scene of Michael Myers? Like like right before he kills Little John and Big John, like they flash back to 20 years ago. He was like watching the first gay kiss on St. Elsewhere, and they see him like he clenches his fist in his handcuffed, shackled hands. Like, come on, like.
Well, but at least if we saw him watching St. Elsewhere, then we would know that he's not part of the Tommy Westphall universe. So
exactly.
That'd be good.
Well, we were talking for a second there. That one girl, Sarah, she had a towel wrapped around her, and like that kill kind of made me groan more than anything, because it's like, just like I was like, I had a little bit of a problem with Jason teleporting up to the roof, but this time he just, talk about a great aim. He throws an axe through a door, it explodes through the door and hits the girl directly in the chest. Like,
yeah, I'm pretty, like, I have to tell you, I was actually yesterday, I was out axe throwing.
Really?
And so I can attest to the fact that that's pretty impressive, because my aim, I definitely would not have made that kill shot. I'll tell you that, based on my experience yesterday.
Yeah, like if that girl was 6 inches to the right or left, like she might not have got it dead square. The outtakes of that scene are funny though, because it's obviously the gag is she's got the axe embedded in her already, like in her towel or her prosthetic, and they're just like trying to throw sticks of the wood at her, and they're like realizing in the outtakes like this isn't working, because it just looks like we're throwing sticks on her face. So that's why they went to the reverse shot where they used the air cannon and actually blew out the whole door. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is like what we were talking about before. Like, Rob is supposed to be the guy who's going to stop Jason, or at least we think he's the most manliest man. But he goes down in the basement and he gets killed by Jason pretty easily. And I actually thought this was a great kill in terms of, like, you can hardly see anything because it's so dark down there. But I actually, and I've heard some people actually kind of mock this scene, but I kind of love it that he just, like, he's screaming and then he starts screaming, he's killing me, he's killing me. Like, what did you think of this?
I'm in the camp that doesn't. Here's the thing. I like this death in terms of like what it means. Like I said, I like that he's just easily dispatched. I like what you said about how it's like in the dark, you don't really see it. So our buddy Bird, who's also a guest on here, a frequent guest on here, him and I have kind of joked about how, like, in the fan commentary of this with Joe Green Joe Lynch and Adam Green, they talk about how it's like one of the most chilling things they've ever seen and heard, and we've seen other people say that, and like Joseph Zito's talked about how it's like based on a real case he read about with like somebody being killed and screaming that. I guess if you're really experiencing it, we need to talk about the dog in a moment too, but. I don't know. I don't find it very scary or chilling. I find it kind of, I don't want to say silly, but it just doesn't. Him screaming he's killing me doesn't really work for me. I don't feel any like emotional pull by it or anything. So it doesn't really work for me that much. But
because I have heard that commentary with Green and Lynch, maybe that's subconsciously, maybe that was stuck in my mind, and that's why it works so good for me this time. Now, yeah, we got to talk about the dog, because he just flew out a window, like literally flew.
He's the smartest character ever in Friday the 13th.
So Joe Zito was saying,
the F out.
Yeah, like, okay, that's exactly what I always thought, Trev. He just jumps out of he's like, something's wrong here, I'm jumping out of here. Because it's my understanding that at this point, Jason is down in the basement with Rob, about to kill him. But apparently there was a blowback with this, where people thought that the dog was thrown out the window by Jason, which it doesn't make any sense, because Jason's down in the basement at the time.
Yeah, it also just doesn't look like that. Like, it very clearly is the dog jumping through the window.
That's the way that they meant to shoot it, because you can see on the outtakes, like, the dog jumps and breaks the glass, but he doesn't quite clear it, so, he kind of, like, falls backward. He doesn't fall, but his hind legs fall backward, and he's just holding himself by his front legs. And, like, they're trying to get him to jump out the front. So, like, then they got another take of him actually finishing jumping out. But, yeah, like, he was never supposed to be thrown through the window. Now, I think it is true we never see him again.
No.
So he could have got hurt by that, or possibly even killed by that. But, Jason did not get him. He was not a victim.
That would have been a great scene at the end of Friday the 13th Part 6, when the Tom Matthews version of Tommy Jarvis is fighting Jason. If, like, the old-ass dog had suddenly run out of the woods and, like, made the save. Like, the continuity would have been incredible.
Now, this might be a little too goofy for you, Trev, but, what was his name? Grover in this? The dog was Grover?
Oh, I don't know.
Or Gordon. I'm sorry, Gordon. Gordon is the dog's name. I actually would have liked it if, he was like a super smart dog, and like somehow like he helped like defeat Jason in a way. Like, I actually would have been down for that. Like,
that's fine.
If he unlocked a door where they were trapped, or he did something, you know what I mean? Like, he helped them.
Like the Hills Have Eyes dogs.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't want to say, but this is what I thought. Jason kills Rob with one of those little hand scraper things you use in the garden with the 3 prongs. And I always thought that was like a scary thing as a kid, like using that, because we actually did do a little bit of gardening on the side of our house when I was a kid. When I would dig up the ground, I was like, look at that thing. I'm like, ooh, this thing looks evil. You know what I mean? They're not really sharp, but
Yeah, it is. I mean, again, the pitch black comedy of it, just really like what was going through Rob's head in that moment of like you've dedicated not your life, but at least the last week to like this mission,
yeah,
and just to have it like be over that simple. I also like that after the death, Jason just went right back under the stairs and put himself in the same hiding spot that he used earlier.
yeah, because
like, well, this worked 5 seconds ago. I guess I'll just do it again.
I mean, it's kind of. I mean, I guess it's not smart if it didn't work, but it's kind of brilliant. Yeah. Okay, so this is me being a big dummy here. It's like, okay, that's Jimmy. I never realized it was Jimmy for some reason. I don't know fucking why. It wasn't until this watch where I'm like, oh shit, that's Jimmy. That's like, whatever nailed up. Because like, you can clearly see it there, but when Jason comes out and just pushes him out of the way later, it's like way quicker. I don't know why I never put two and two
Well,
together.
and again, remember, we spent the majority of our lives watching crap transfers of these movies.
That is true. That is true. Because there was a lot of shots where I'm like, in this movie of this transfer that's on this Blu-ray, and I was like, this is a really good looking movie. Like
this looks great, yeah.
It's very cinematic. The lighting is very good. And it's kind of funny when you watch like the outtakes or like the lost whatever. When you see the footage untreated, Trev, it's amazingly clear, but it's like really bright. So like with the color timing, they really darken this down in post. Yeah, see, like when he pushes Jimmy off the things. But
now we're getting into the whole sequence here where, to me, this is like Ted White as Jason. All this stuff coming up is just what makes him like one of the best Jasons. Like it's so iconic. Like I know like Kane Hodder often gets credit for being like the first Jason who had like this kind of look of like being so like just like mean and kind of like intense. But no, that's what Ted White's doing here. Like when he comes bursting to the door, just the physicality of it. It's just he's so scary in this climax, and right there bursting through the window. Yeah. It's all great. Yeah.
So that moment when Jason used Rob's body to break out the window of the Jarvis house, that reminded me so much of when he busts through the window in part 2. Did you think that was possibly an homage?
Perhaps. Oh man, that busting through the door is one of the best images.
Yeah. I love when he throws the hammer.
Throw the hammer, yeah. It's all great. Perhaps, yeah, I don't know how much they were already thinking about homaging themselves or how much just the same gags kept being brought up, in the mix as everyone's sitting around.
Now, I'm trying to spot it now, but Joe Zito says that people complain about the continuity of the... I see what he means. One of the toys fell down and now it's back up there. But he was saying the continuity... I would look at that and I never noticed it, but it was just that one little weird flying lion thing that, like, whatever.
I mean, if that kind of stuff is bothering you in one of these,
that's what he said. Now, Trev, besides being a video game kid and a monster mask kid, apparently Tommy was supposed to be somewhat of an inventor, and Tom Savini had come up with a gag where supposedly Tommy had a microwave oven he took apart, and he was like using the microwaves like he could focus them. And we would see, like, on a low setting earlier in the movie, he would melt, like, a G.I. Joe action figure. And then later he would turn it up to 10 and point it at Jason's head and partially melt his head. Like, I can't believe that's an idea Tom Savini had. And I have to say, like, it's intriguing and it's bizarre, but I'm kind of glad they didn't use it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that we do not have the super microwave. That's fine.
I just thought this was brutal, where she throws the monitor on his head. Like, I don't know how they did that. I mean, obviously it was breakaway glass or whatever, but, like, that just looks like it would kill Ted White's head. Like,
it's also interesting that I know, like, people talk about, like, with Friday the 13th Part 6 is the first one that actually has kids at the camp. Mm-hmm. And then you often hear when people talk about this franchise, one of those things that get brought up is people say this, well, Jason would never kill kids, though. He just kills teenagers. He'll, like, leave kids alone. But, like, how quickly do people forget that he spends the entire last, like, 10 minutes of this movie very much trying to kill Tommy Jarvis. It does not seem like he's like, no, I'm just going for the sister. I don't think Jason cares. I think Jason is a pretty equal opportunity.
No, on the special features, I was kind of shocked because Joe Zito had glowing praise of Corey Feldman as a young actor and as a young person, but Ted White had no bones about it. Made no bones about it. He said that Corey Feldman was a mean little kid and he wasn't well behaved.
Doesn't Ted White strike you as maybe just like a grumpy old man? I mean, he was like he was in his mid-50s when he made this. So
yeah, he definitely grew up. See, I love that look where he's looking between the two of them.
Yeah.
Like, I remember Ted White saying that he decided to play Jason like a cowboy, and I kind of see that. Like,
well, Ted White was a cowboy himself.
Yeah.
Right? So that makes, yeah.
Like, he kind of... And I love, I believe it was Richard Brooker's portrayal in Part 3. I love Richard Brooker's portrayal. But it's like that weird thing, as much as I'm a stickler for continuity, and I love that they showed the ranch from Part 3 at the beginning and stuff, I kind of do like that each movie has its own tone, and, like, maybe the variations in the Jason performance actually work for each movie. Like, maybe you do have to kind of tailor your Jason just a little bit to the, you know, the film that it's working in.
That's what I was thinking about. Like, I know, and there's a lot of broken windows in this movie.
Yeah. The twin, Gordon, and now Trish.
Yeah. Oh, you can see the pad there. That's
Yeah.
too bad. But I know the controversy, and I do feel bad for Kane Hodder about not being able to be in Freddy vs. Jason, but I've never understood people who just immediately dismiss that movie because of that. And I have to say, when I watched that film, which actually is one of my favorite entries in the franchise, I do sometimes agree with like the thought that I don't know that Kane Hodder's Jason would work for what this movie is asking of Jason to do. I actually think the version of Jason in that is it Ken Kinziger or whatever?
Ken Kinziger.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, he's also in another Friday movie. Remember?
Yeah. But I actually really like that Jason. I think every actor does bring slight differences to it. I never understood why that shot was slow motion right there of Jason walking.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah. Ooh, bad wig here. But I also, if you're like, I like people being bothered by like the toy on the shelf, but I've never seen enough people talk about how much hair Corey Feldman has, and then like just a quick cut to it, like it's all gone.
Well, not only that, but they showed him dunk his real hair in, and it was like dripping wet his head, and then all of a sudden he's cutting a dry wig off.
Yeah, but it's just like it stretches credulity a little bit that he comes up with his plan so quickly, as you said, that he could just like be like, oh, if I turn myself into Jason. Obviously, this is homage to the past, right? We've already done like the putting on a sweater. They always wanted to come up with something, but this one's a little bit of a stretch.
But isn't it weird though? Like, granted, this could just be my great effect here with the split hand, but finally the monster hand kind of works there. But it's weird because, you know, these little points where I've been saying, hey, Trev, do you think this is a homage to Part 2? Do you think this is a homage to Part 2? It's like the thing with Tommy is definitely an homage to putting on the sweater in Part 2.
Yeah.
And I just think it's weird that everything is homaging Part 2.
I just think it's also weird, like on a conceptual level, like I get why Jason would be stopped by his mom, but like the idea of him being, oh, look, it's me. I don't know. It's like it's bizarre. It's a weird story beat.
You know, it's weird. It's, you know, I'm generally not a person who's like, oh, this held up when I was a kid, but now it sucks. But this is one thing, again, I thought this was a genius storyline when I was a kid. And, like, now I'm just kind of like... He even changes into a wardrobe that he didn't have on before, too. It's strange. But this is, like, another thing where, like, yeah, I'm with you. I'm like... I don't know. Like, I don't... And he's saying, Jason, don't you remember me? Don't you remember me, Jason? It's like, this is something I think would confuse Jason for a split second, and then he just would go right back, turn around to killing Trish. Like, do you think they're ripping off the Myers head tilt a little bit there? Or?
Rip off, or just like, what else can you do to like represent some being intrigued or interested in something?
Now, now Jason is finally unmasked here. What do you think of the Part 4 Jason look compared to Part 3, which Part 3 was a mixture because they did one makeup and then they changed it halfway through and they did stuff. I
definitely prefer the Part 4 of all the. This is the first, like, to me, this is the first unmasked Jason that I love. I think this is like my iconic Jason look. I think
he's a little almost like in this one, like it's clearly trying to have some continuity with the Part 3 look, but don't you think this one's like more like, I don't know, like if zombie's the right word, but like he's got like more scarring.
Almost like goblin. He's like goblinish. Like kind of looking. Oh, this is great. The sliding down though.
Yeah, that's sliding down. It was like, how do they do that? You know, it's just like that was like the special effect that we couldn't believe as kids when we watched this on VHS. Really, the showstopper scene there. No, okay, like. we're pretty much at the point now, pretty much wrapping up the film. You know, we get a little bit of a twitch of Jason, and then Tommy goes crazy. So this really was. We didn't talk too much about it, but this really was supposed to be the final Friday, at least during the conception point of this film. For some reason, Paramount, they were making tons of money. They were tired of making money because, like, they figured they could go make some more money without taking all the flack that they got for these films being so, I guess, graphic and, you know, at this time. I mean, really, what was that backlash? Do you really know, Trev? Like, other than just Siskel and Ebert bitching about these films? I mean, was there a backlash? Because I'm sure people who owned movie theaters probably liked it with everybody coming.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? That's why Paramount, like, I don't think the backlash, like, they put up with the backlash because the money aspect was always good for them. But I think it was just, like, probably still, like, some old traditionalists, you know, being in charge who, you know, were embarrassed just by the content of it. If enough critics complained, they felt ashamed. But I don't know. Obviously, today that wouldn't be an issue because everyone's just way more craven about money in general. So
yeah. And then what's weird is Joe Zito said for all, because people were like, oh, like this or this, where you're trying to leave a little bit of a wiggle room just in case. Joe Zito said no. Like, the whole time he was shooting this movie, he said the only thing is originally the studio, like, got weird with the way they were going to do Jason. Like, they were going to, like, the way he does the slide down the thing, it was originally he was supposed to get cut, like, more down the middle, and it was almost more like his head was supposed to get split, like, 3/4 of the way down. I think, like maybe from the top of his head down to his mouth, almost, to the point where it's like there's no way any. I mean, first of all, nobody could survive sliding down the machete in their eyeball the way he just did. But, like, they were like, no, you know, have it be on the side and not be as deep this way and this shit. And he said when he got the feedback on that, like, he knew that they were, like, having second thoughts about it being the final one. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I've watched this movie many, many times in my life, Goat, and I don't know if until last night watching it for this, it was the first time I might have thought. I don't know what your thinking is on this. Why exactly is Trish in a hospital bed here at the end?
Well,
it's that, like,
she did fall off a roof, though. Remember?
Yeah, she seemed to recover from it, but it didn't seem like she had any injuries that would necessitate necessarily being hooked up to an IV in a hospital. But
well, it's hard to say too because originally, I guess we should talk about the lost ending, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the lost ending, pretty much, you know, it was supposed to cut from that white fade out from Tommy just hacking Jason over and over. It was supposed to cut to the next morning, and I really like this, and I don't know if it's on all the different Blu-rays, but it's definitely on the Scream Factory one. It's kind of like they show the aftermath a little bit of, like, all the destruction and shit, and, like, Trish and Tommy are just passed out on the couch holding each other, like they just pretty much collapse in exhaustion, and Jason's just laying there dead on the floor. And Trish gets up and she goes upstairs and she finds the mom in the bathtub. And I'm just like, well, this is kind of like a good, like, emotional ending, whatever. But then the mom opens her eyes and they're all white. And then Jason comes through the door and then she wakes up in the hospital bed like we saw there. And then, you know, I assume the same thing would happen. But I'm glad that it's interesting to see that footage because, you know, it's very interesting to see that could have been the ending. But I like the ending they used better, but at the same time, we need to talk about it. Well, maybe we don't, because we still have 2 more Tommy Jarvis movies to go. But that whole teasing of, like, oh, Tommy might be the next killer. What's your thought on that? It's just a concept in general. Like, we know they didn't actually go that route. But,
yeah.
You know.
No, I do want to talk about it because I think it's to me, it's always one of the more interesting kind of ideas of Friday the 13th. Because obviously, as a Friday the 13th fan, Alec Gillis and Kevin Yeager, special effects makeup.
Oh, yeah.
As a Friday the 13th fan, I love Jason, and Jason is the star. But there is a part of me that wonders how interesting of a franchise this could have been if they had committed to that idea more. And I think what especially bothers me is the fact that they tease it 2 movies in a row and never deliver on it.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you feel, Go, but I do think there's an alternate universe where we have a more, like, a maybe even more fascinating version of Friday the 13th where there's 4 Jason films, and then you have, like, 4 films with Tommy the killer, and then that segues into another killer. And I think that could have been really cool if you allow this franchise to evolve, and it's all about this cycle of violence where something happens that sets off the next person.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I actually I don't like regret where they went. Well, I'm not a big fan. Spoiler alert for our next commentary. The Roy reveal, I'm not a fan of, but
I don't think anybody is, honestly.
Yeah, but I'm not. I don't regret. Obviously, I love the idea of zombie Jason in the subsequent films. But no, I do actually wish we could have seen Tommy take over as the primary antagonist of the series. What do you think?
No, I love it, but it angers me at the same time because everybody wimps out. They wimped out. Halloween wimped out.
Halloween, I think, is the one that makes me more mad because I think ultimately I would, even more so than wanting to see Tommy take over. I would have really liked to have seen Danielle Harris, become the villain of Halloween. Yeah.
Or at the bare minimum, Trev. At the bare minimum, she becomes Michael's sidekick in training.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just, I hate it when they tease it and they don't do it or anything. And it's I
think that's one thing that's one of the star attractions of the Scream series is the fact that you get new killers each time.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said for that and I know that's kind of different because it's always about the mystery of it.
Right.
But beyond that, I wish some franchise would have the guts to kind of go into it, that being the plan, where they say hey, at about movie 3 or 4, I guess this is a Saw thing too, right? It's the transition from Kramer into Hoffman. So maybe that's why I like that series too. But yeah, I like that idea of suddenly changing who the villain is.
Yeah, I feel like Saw series was the only ones that actually freaking did it. But it's that series is kind of different in that way, but it's kind of not either because a lot of it has to do with, okay, it's not Tobin Bell, but it's somebody who believes in the same philosophy that he did.
And we're still going to have Tobin Bell flashbacks up the ass. So
yeah. You know what? The Saw franchise gets a lot of guff, and I even tapped out after 3 theatrically. I was like, this is just running on, and I didn't go back, and I went back and watched them on video eventually, but I didn't go back to the theater until I think Saw, I can't remember what the number was, but the whatever the one was in 3D, I went to see that again, and then I kind of grew a new appreciation for it, and I'm rewatching it a couple more times since it's the series has kind of ended. I know they've had these little spin-offs like Jigsaw and then Spiral, but I don't know, there's something to me, and I think it's just because I was a kid who grew up with Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, but I appreciate long-running series of any kind.
Yeah, no, I do too. I love Saw. There was just something nice about, but I get this is tricky because I say I love Saw and I miss the annual franchise. Yeah. What I will say though, I never got into Paranormal Activity, which was the one that kind of usurped Saw.
I hate Paranormal Activity.
Maybe there's something about the found footage paranormal aspect of it, but if you can give me any kind, if you could get another one of these running again, even with, I wasn't a huge fan of Spiral, but I know they're working on it, but why wasn't the Spiral sequel 1 year later? There was something about the forced, I don't want to say ingenuity because sometimes that's not how it turned out, but when you force these filmmakers to come up with a new story and film it and edit it and get it together in only a year, that's what makes these franchises fun and bizarre and goofy. And that's why we keep revisiting movies series like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, which we know some of the sequels aren't as good as the others, but we don't bypass any of them. We still do these franchise rewatches because they're interesting. And I think this is a strange comment, but I feel like everyone is too precious now and tries to make their franchises too good.
Yeah.
They want to put too much thought into the sequels. It's no, just crap them out and we'll be there. Don't worry. We're dumb horror fans, but that's what will make them silly and fun.
Well, especially when you have a revolving door of directors and stuff. It's you can stumble and make a bad one and then recover. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying Friday the 13th Part 5 is a bad movie because I don't think it's objectively a bad movie. I think it's objectively a pretty good movie. But I can understand fans of the franchise not liking it when it came out, but that's a perfect example. It's okay, they rebounded with Part 6, and I think that one just gave the fans exactly back what they wanted. You know what I mean? I will say I don't know what your thoughts on the last Scream movie was, Trev, but that is an annual franchise now. There is the Scream 6 is coming out in March of next year, so maybe Scream can keep it going for a little bit.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think the key with Scream now is see what's their willingness to start moving beyond Sidney and Gale Weathers and transitioning over to the younger characters who were introduced in this latest one. But
yeah, that's my thing is I I like I hate using this term, but I like the legacy characters in the last Scream movie. But I thought you could completely have made the movie without it, and like that's all I want with Scream is like just make it another town on the other fucking side of the country. You know what I mean? Like I just want to have a Scream story. Like I still got a few episodes to go, but I actually went through leading up to this latest Scream movie, and I started watching the Scream TV show finally on MTV, which I always wrote off because it was MTV. It was like not Ghostface. Eventually, they do bring Ghostface back in the third season, I think. But I'm watching it, and I'm like, this isn't as good as the movies to me, but I enjoy the show because it's basically Scream in a new setting, new town, new circumstance, new. You know, there is a mythology to at least the first season that I've seen, but it's not has nothing to do with Ghostface. So I'm like, you can just do that with like the Scream movie series, and like as long as somebody's wearing a Ghostface mask, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Yep. No, I liked what I saw the Scream show, and like, so you saw the new Scream film as well? Or?
Yeah. I saw it when it hit streaming, like whatever that was on Paramount Plus. Yeah. So
I liked it quite a bit.
I did too. Like honestly, and like I watched the non-spoiler reviews. Of course, I didn't want it spoiled for me or anything, but I watched not everybody, but I watched quite a few non-spoiler reviews when it hit the theaters, and I don't know if it was a thing of expectations or what. But I didn't see one person positive on it. And I watched it, and there was shit that made me cringe in it. Like all the whole requel thing and, just the modern whatever. There was definitely cringy shit. But I mean, I don't know. I'm like, this is cool. This Scream is back.
See, I loved it. And I'm surprised to hear you say that because I felt like most of the feedback I saw, I guess we just follow different kind of people. But I feel like I saw mostly really positive feedback about that movie. But I actually like the requel stuff. That's like actually what I like about it because I think I'm not the biggest fan of Scream 4, and I think that's what I mean. Like, to me, every Scream movie should be commenting on like what is happening right now.
Yeah,
and that is the thing. Like, that's what we have all these, Ghostbusters Afterlife and these legacy sequels. So I'm glad Scream, and even that they made a joke in the movie about, I was definitely one of those people going into it being like, why is this just called Scream? Why isn't it Scream 5? And the fact that they brought that up in the movie, that kind of like forgave it a little bit. That they like. Yeah. They made a point to bring it up as like, well, that's what horror movies do now. They're called Halloween or whatever. So
Halloween really pissed me off when they did it, and then I was disappointed when Scream did it. But I was just like, once they threw that one little line in the movie, I'm like, okay, like I can, But
yeah, they're having fun,
But yeah, like I just saw all these reviews and people were like, the legacy characters are cool. Every single new character is shit, and I'm like, they're like I don't think, put it this way, I don't think they had to have every one of the quote unquote legacy characters in there. I think they could have got away with like maybe just having Dewey or just maybe having Sidney. Like maybe just having one would have been good enough for me. But there were some new characters I didn't like. There were some new actors I didn't think were that great. But like overall, I like 75% of them I liked. Like it's like, I don't know, like I maybe I have low expectations, Trev, but I kind of just miss the days of like, and I don't want to use this as a cop out to excuse bad movies or running franchises in the ground, but I kind of miss the days when the fans of a franchise were fans.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, and I think like just in case anyone hasn't seen the newest Scream yet, I don't think we'll spoil anything necessarily, but I think they finally did in terms of legacy characters, I think they finally went in a direction that I thought the series was overdue to go in and needed to do. And I also thought there was and I'm sure you'll know what I'm alluding to, there was a return of another legacy character that I did not expect to see, that was a genuine surprise to me, and I thought was handled very coolly, and I'm actually hoping that even goes further in the sequels. So I know, all in all, I really quite enjoyed it.
And I liked it too that it was a sequel to all the Screams. So like it literally was Scream 5. Like they had a character that was only in Scream 4 come back in Scream 5, and whereas I think the kind of masturbatory nostalgia, whatever requel would be like, no, we don't want to, because Scream 4 was not that well received. I personally don't mind the movie. I think Scream 4 is better than Scream 3, but I hate that thing where it's like, we're just going to leave out all the characters that people like didn't like their movie or whatever. And I'm just like, how about you grow some fucking balls? Okay, if people didn't like this movie, how about you make it better? How about you make the characters better? Because if not, what are you doing with this franchise? You're just, making a cheap buck or just pandering,
No, I agree with you there. That's what I like too. Is like I said, I'm not I mean, look, here's the thing. I don't like Scream 4, but like to me, a bad Scream movie is still fairly entertaining.
Right,
You
right.
know?
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing is like this is what I mean with the long-running franchises is just when you end up with a bad one, it's like Friday the 13th, my favorite franchise.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of 5. I don't like part 7 very much, but then you just go, okay, well, what can you do with the next one? Can you like make up for that? And it's not about saying like let's throw it all out. It's just like let's move on to the next thing. That's fine.
Exactly. I agree. So yeah, man, it's I don't I don't want to say it's the best time to be a horror fan, but I think things are like not quite as like dim and grim as
I think it is a really good time to be a horror fan. I think especially as long as you're a real horror fan. Look, I hate that term because there are too many dumb horror gatekeepers on like TikTok and Twitter. I bristle at that. Sometimes people bring attention to those videos where someone will call someone not a real horror fan because they say their favorite horror movie is some remake. It's like if you like a horror movie, you're a horror fan, and I'll gladly talk to you about horror. Like whatever your gateway is or whatever you're into. If your favorite thing is Paranormal Activity, fine, cool, we'll still find something. But what I mean when I say real horror fan, I mean if you're putting in the work to find horror movies right now and not only looking at what's coming out in the theater, it's a great time to be a horror fan. Because like the past couple of years, there's been just a deluge of like so much like great indie horror on services like Shudder and even Amazon Prime has a lot of interesting smaller ones pop up. And yeah, there's a lot of good stuff going on.
And also too, it's like the newer stuff. It's not really as like advertised, promoted. Like I get it, like which you have to look for it, but there's I know we're all sick of the billionth streaming service that's coming out. Every week there's a new streaming service. But one thing I will say is if you get a trial of one of these or if you get something, go in there and because there are so many streaming services, some old shit that has not been available like for a long time, some stuff that's not even available on physical media, since the VHS days is showing up on streaming, stuff from the 80s and 90s. So even if you just want to go like me, like I just hunt for old movies, Trev, and I'm finding all kinds of gems and shit that I never knew existed. So it's like, I know exactly what you mean. If you're willing to dig, whether you're somebody who really thrives on new releases or you're somebody who likes old shit, like it's kind of a good time as long as you're willing to do the work to go find some cool shit,
Yep.
So yeah, Trev, I know we talked a little bit about failure to franchise. What's going on with failure to franchise? Are you guys out of movies that have failed to franchise yet?
Oh no, we have a list. It's actually accessible through my Letterboxd page. You can see like the list, and we barely are into it yet. If we keep at the pace we do, which is 2 a month, I think we're at least good for another 3 years or so, if that. I mean, maybe even longer. And like beyond that, it's Hollywood is going to keep doing this.
Yeah.
Just in recent months, I can think of films like the 355.
Yeah, I still want to see that. I understand it flopped, but I still want to see it.
Yeah, but there are still things coming along that we just assume will be. I think like now we're getting the streaming things trying to set up franchises. Like there was that Mark Wahlberg Spencer Confidential that I doubt is getting any sequels. So I think we're going to be okay for a bit.
I love failure to franchise. I was one of the first people to write a review on it. Trev, I hope you don't get mad at me for bringing this up. And I recently got back in it because basically my job changed and it got to the point where, because I used to, all day long, man, I just listened to the podcast, and I couldn't like really do that with my job anymore. So, I got behind, but now I've gone back to playing video games. So for roughly an hour a night, I play NBA 2K20, Trev, not 2K21 or 2K22, 2K20, and I turn the sound down and I listen to Failure to Franchise, and like I'm getting caught up. I think I'm in the middle of November right now, and I wrote you a 5-star review, and everybody else wrote you a 5-star review. Failure to Franchise has a 4.8 out of 5 on iTunes to tell you how well like this. But there was one person who wrote you a bad review. Do you mind if I read this bad review?
You can. I think since I can't remember if we've done it. I'm pretty sure we've actually referenced this review in later episodes that you might not have heard yet. Okay. But feel free to read the review. I can respond to it.
Yeah. So okay. This is kind of recent. Like us right now. If you guys want to leave a review for the movie Graveyard, we'd appreciate it. It's been a while since we had one. But this one is kind of recent for Failure to Franchise, Trev. This was coming in hot on February 5th, 2022. And this person gave you a 1 out of 5 stars. Now, we also, on Movie Graveyard, we have a 1 out of 5 stars, but it was just a rating. They didn't write anything. So I don't know what what they didn't like about the show. But this guy, which, I mean, these are like fake names anyways. He goes by the name Way to the Dawn, which, is that a reference to a book or a movie? Because I don't get it.
It might be, yeah.
So anyway, his subject line is baffled. He was baffled by the failure of the franchise. He says, found this podcast while trying to find some fresh film takes and was excited to give this one a try! Exclamation point. However, the conversations are boring and meandering. A lot of movies they cover were never intended to be franchised to begin with. And don't get me started on their terrible theme puns. Hard pass. Now, first of all, I need to stick up for you. Second of all, I don't know what he means by a lot of the movies were never intended to be franchised, because I think they were. Because I remember a lot of these.
I think there's been like a couple where there might be more of a question of it, but I think in the episodes we usually explain like what we mean by this, or like what we think like the intention might have been, of where we think at least like there was some thought to like this could maybe spin off into something or whatever. So I do wonder what films, because he says films, and I wonder like what are the multiples that he would point to that would say those were not intended to be franchises.
Well, the thing about the conversations are boring and meandering, and I know this is like an awkward thing to be like, Trev, what's your response to it? But I'll just say my personal thing as a fan of the show, I don't find that at all. Like, what I like about the show is you guys, like, you kind of dissect it from both, like, okay, what is your actual critique of the show? Because there's a lot of the movies you actually stand up for and talk about what you like about it.
Oh, of course.
But I like the older ones too, because you guys kind of do what I do on this show, and I kind of give the background. As you guys, a lot of times, if it's an older movie, you mention like I was this age, or Chris used to work at a movie theater, and he was like, I actually was working at the theater with. Like, I like you guys give your point of reference in time of what age you were at and how you reacted to the film then, how you react to the film now, like whatever. Like, so I mean, I'm trying real hard, and again, there's probably a dozen or so episodes I haven't heard so far. But unless this guy was just, like, I just don't really get what he's getting at. Like, and honestly, the show is like not that long, really. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a lot of episodes that come in closer to the hour mark, and there's some that go like 90 minutes. But you guys don't really ramble like I do on here and go like 3 hours or whatever.
I would actually be down to ramble more. Yeah. That's really, I give that to Chris. Chris is one who wants to keep this very much an on-topic more podcast. I actually quite enjoy a lot of the film podcasts I listen to are very tangent and divergent kind of led, and I actually like that. Like, that's one thing I like about doing the show with you. I know we're doing it right now. We will finish the commentary and then we'll just BS for a while.
Yeah.
But no, that's like Chris's thing. That's fine by me. But like, yeah, that kind of review, look, I'm not bothered by it. You can only look at it and laugh. I mean, when someone says like, well, the puns are terrible. I mean, puns are meant to be terrible. That's the magic. That's the magic of puns, right there. Like, we know they're bad. Like, that's. I
think that's the thing I take more issue with in this bad review is like the puns are meant to be bad. Like, Chris will even groan at them when you. Yeah,
nobody's trying. Nobody in the history of puns. Nobody's trying to make good puns. No. That's not the point of puns. The point of puns and dad jokes are you were making a bad joke. But whatever. Hey, look, not everybody has to like our show. That's fine. So whatever. But
yeah, I mean, the description you guys put out is a bi-weekly podcast devoted to infamous examples of failed film franchise starters. In a Hollywood landscape dominated by giant tentpole movies, not all attempted franchises can succeed. Many intended first entries of series fail to generate planned sequels due to low box office, poor judgment, or simply put, utter incompetence. Show is a celebration of, or perhaps a memorial for those failures, as hosts Trev and Chris dissect what went wrong with these cinematic misfires. It's like, I don't think there's any false advertising, and I don't think you guys fail to live up to that mission statement whatsoever.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. If I can give a little preview of something, because I know this is right up your alley, Goat. So this is like the perfect show for me to talk about this.
Let's do it.
I think now that you're getting back into it, now that I know you I have known you enjoy the show. So as you know, we like to kind of work in theme months and like runs.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah, so we will once again this summer be doing a summer surprise, which we quite like last summer, where we put a bunch of movies we have just into a randomizer and let the computer pick for us. So we're going to do 4 episodes about that. But then I was able to talk Chris into a 3-month run, which I believe you're going to love. Goat. So you do need to get caught up, because starting in August we are doing a 3-month run of episodes which we're calling Fall Back to the 80s, and we're going all 80s.
Wow.
And I can tell you, I will reveal it here. This is breaking news on Movie Graveyard. I can tell you the films we'll be covering from August through October on Failure to Franchise.
Do it.
And that will be Flash Gordon, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension,
Wow.
Streets of Fire,
Oh, yes.
Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins,
Fuck yeah.
Masters of the Universe,
Oh, I think it just came.
and for our Halloween episode, Shocker.
Oh, amazing. Amazing.
So,
Yeah. I gotta say, I didn't think anything was going to top Mila Junovich.
yeah.
But I was very, very blown away and surprised by how much I love Summer Surprise. So
Yeah.
the 1-2 punch too of Assassin's Creed and Dylan Dog Dead of Night, which this might
Dylan Dog Dead of Night, by the way, one of our least popular episodes, one of our least downloaded.
that's it's just because nobody knows it exists. The movie,
that's the
like
thing.
nobody knows it exists. I gotta say, I listened to those 2 episodes recently too. Like probably those 2, I probably heard you guys talk about like less than 2 weeks ago. It's good when you can like. I mean, I don't know how much I disagree with you. I get those are 2 like slog movies, which I actually kind of enjoy. Like they're not great, but they're good like time fillers for me. But I like even though you guys rip both those to shreds, you guys did it like as intelligently, and you went as far as you possibly could to try to dig out what redeeming qualities you could. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a show about hate and like
No.
Honestly I mean I don't know, you know, like maybe you guys would be more popular if you were just hating and putting on an act and shitting on everything, but like, you know, Paul Scheer has that angle covered. You know what I mean? Like you guys don't need to be like that.
Yeah, my mission statement on the show for me is never to say a movie failed because it sucks and just stop there. There's always something else there, because, you know, a lot of like not great movies have gone on to be successes and gotten franchises. So we try to look more into like what exactly what wasn't working, what weren't people responding to. But yeah, I think there are some movies that I see that I outright hate for sure. But I don't know that we've watched too many of those on that show. And like this is a conversation I have with like Bird and Jelly and some of our other buddies a lot. I don't think there's anything wrong with just being a movie fan.
Right.
And going into most movies wanting to be entertained, and like sometimes you get accused of having like low standards on that or being too forgiving of things. And look, I can get sick and bored of things. Like I'm up and down on the MCU. Like right now I'm in a pretty like kind of whatever kind of period with the MCU, and then there's other things where I'm higher on it. But in general, like I try to find positives in movies, you know, and like I don't see why. The negativity around movie discourse. This is coming from like how getting too involved in like film Twitter.
Yeah.
It bums me out. Like we're supposed to like be having fun with these things, and so even like the shittier movies, it's maybe fun to talk about like, well, what could have been, like what could have worked there, like what could have been, and that's what I like doing. You know, there's the segment Trevor rewrites the movies on that show, where I'll try to like think of what you could have done. Yeah, what you could have done a little differently. So yeah, to me that's more fun to find the diamonds in the rough, even in like the most rough movies.
Oh yeah, you can't, as much as a hater as I get pegged for, you won't imagine how many times I've rewritten the Disney Star Wars sequel trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, I totally get where the urge is. It's just like you feel bad for filmmakers that like, you know, sometimes you just miss the mark by a wide mile, but sometimes you see people and it's just like, you were 3/4 of the way there. If you just could have tweaked a few things and went in this direction, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But that's your controversial side of podcast. Trev, why don't you give a quick plug too for your bread and butter, the show that never gets a hateful review. Everybody loves. It's the one that the millions tune into. Your other podcast.
Well, to be fair, actually, I think we had one bad review a while back on the show, like years ago, because I think people were mad that we were making fun of DC movies.
Oh, okay.
So it's not surprising. Maybe I think a Snyder bro might have got at us, but but I believe that is of course Days of Future podcast, which you're talking about, which is a little bit more irregular of a show. We have a hard time keeping a consistent schedule on that because of our schedules, but you know, we're chugging along, and we have recently started to do video episodes. We just did our first video episode. You can go be watched on YouTube, and we're gonna do some more of those. Sometimes it's just us. I think we're just kind of working on Zoom now, so we figured we could like actually record it, people could watch, and we're trying to think of some ways to do maybe some comic book reviews where we can show like the pages on the video and everything. But yeah, that's my show dedicated to all X-Men talk. I think we're finally it's getting exciting because we're finally moving into the initial steps of the X-Men starting to show up in the MCU.
Yeah.
So we'll finally have a little bit more to talk about because there's already quite a lot of podcasts that cover X-Men comics. And so we do occasionally review like storylines and certain old classic stories, but we've always been more interested in finding like weird, obscure X-Men stuff to talk about or the TV shows and movies. And so we haven't had as much to talk about since the Fox franchise kind of went away.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think the show will find a new life once we get some Disney Plus stuff going. And of course, we know that Disney Plus is bringing back the X-Men cartoon and stuff like that. So we'll have more to talk about soon.
I do have that one negative. I found that negative review you referenced. Can I read that one too?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Share all my failures with me.
It's not a failure. Okay, you have 68 ratings. And you got one bad written review. That's not bad at all. 1 star out of 5 coming out hot. Rider Fan 215. And this was way back on April 6, 2016. His subject line is, "This is an X-Men podcast.
Yeah.
Not a DC bashing podcast. You don't know what you're talking about when it comes to DC. BVS was fantastic. Shut up about what you don't understand. No period."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder what does he think we don't understand?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, not to be like one of those guys, but I mean, I've read Batman and Superman comics since I was a kid. I understand the characters, and like ultimately, and here's the thing, like even my mentality on that has evolved to the point of I just don't like it, you know? Like I don't care if other people like Man of Steel or BVS. It's just that's not the version of characters I like and respond to. So
well, I don't know. Like it's also weird too. Like I feel like you guys, which I'm way farther behind, and I probably will never be able to catch up with Days of Future podcast. But I've listened to dozens of episodes. And you guys definitely, like, you guys get to the point where, like, and they're actually some of my favorite episodes where you guys talk about obscure, like, X-Men comic arcs and characters and stuff. It's like, if I were to tune into let's say there's a podcast that's all about the history of the fast food chain McDonald's, right? And these guys are telling everything I want to know about the McDonald's brothers, Ray Kroc, and everything. And then they occasionally go on the tangent about how much Taco Bell sucks and they hate Taco Bell. I'm not going to hold it against them, even if I'm a Taco Bell lover as well, because
I was going to say, by the way, I would never do that because I love Taco Bell.
Oh yeah, Taco Bell. But they need to bring back that fucking pizza, bro.
They are. It's coming back.
Okay, yeah. Not limited time. We need it back for good. But like, I would be like, okay, you're delivering on your mission statement of telling me all about Ronald McDonald and the Hamburglar. You can piss on some, beefy cheese burrito, whatever shit if you want to. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that big of a deal. So,
yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it is.
Hey, Goat, before we wrap up, there was like months ago when we weren't sure when we were going to record again.
Yeah.
I mentioned to you that next time we record, there's something I want to talk to you about on mic. And so can we do that just quickly?
Trev, I have starved the loyal and faithful movie graveyard listeners for 3 months of any shows. We can run a little bit over, so please ask me the dying question that you needed to ask me.
Because this is a return to one of maybe our longest ongoing debates, disagreements, and it's something I just want to ask you about because I'm always curious to see if views have evolved, and I'm not looking to change any opinions. If you still feel this way, I'm not going to try to change your mind or anything, but I am curious about something because I recently, earlier this year, bought a new film book, and I don't know if you read books about film as often as I do. That's obviously one of my favorite like nonfiction books to read.
Don't anymore.
Okay, so I'm a fan. So I'm a huge fan of film books, and I think maybe I've talked before about how I'm especially a fan of oral histories. I love books that are just mostly like accumulations of interviews from people involved in a historical event or something. That's my favorite kind of history book to read because I think you get, history is made up of people's memories. And I think it's interesting to see everybody's memories because sometimes they contradict. Sometimes people have different opinions. Like I remember reading an oral history on the making of Buffy and Angel and how some people said David Boreanaz was like a huge dick and other people said he was very nice. So I think it's like cool and you get to see both perspectives, right?
Did anybody say Joss Whedon was a bully?
Yeah, that's one of the first books that really got into the whole Joss
Okay.
Whedon, Charisma Carpenter thing. Um, so I recently, I don't know if you heard about this or whatever, but earlier this year there was a book called Blood, Sweat, and Chrome, which is the oral history of the making of Mad Max Fury Road.
Hmm.
And I absolutely loved this book. I can't recommend it enough to people who enjoy that film, but also just are interested in filmmaking or George Miller and his career. And the reason I wanted to recommend the book to you, and also hear if you heard anything about it, but also just ask if you've like if there's any change in your opinion from before, because I know, and I'm not looking to see if you like that movie anymore now, but I remember when we first debated it, and when you were like less interested in it than I was, and you were more critical of the whole like existence of that movie. One of your main kind of go-to things was you didn't like that it didn't feel like a real Mad Max because it didn't feel as practical
Yeah.
and everything. And this is a book I'm sure I don't know if you've seen anything about like the making of it more so since, but I think we've had this discussion before. But in the years since that book came out, there's definitely been more documentary work and stuff, and this book is a big part of it to reveal how that movie was like a practical like effects masterpiece, and like of like how much crazy stunt work went into that movie, and the fact that they built all these vehicles, and just how dangerous and how intense that filming was, and how yes, like the sandstorm sequence is CGI, but pretty much everything else in it is very much not CGI. Maybe obviously some CGI enhancements, but everything has that
Yeah.
now. But I was just curious if like that, if you've kind of come around at least on that, and like because like reading this book, it really but the other thing is like why I want to recommend it to you is I actually feel like reading the book, even if it doesn't change your opinion on the movie itself, I think you'll come away being more impressed with what that movie was and like and how George Miller went about it. Because reading the book, it actually very much was a case of George Miller fighting the studio so much through like the period of that, and it definitely does feel like very scrappy and to the spirit of old George Miller. There's a great story in there about how the studio didn't want to pay for them because they were supposed to film originally in like I think it was like where was it? I can't remember where originally they were going to film, but something happened and they had to move the whole production to like a different place. And they had all the vehicles built, and they had to take that like 2 year wait, and so
Yeah.
they had to move the vehicles, and the studio didn't want to pay for it, and so they just said like, well, all right, and then but they went ahead and did it anyways, and then once they were like halfway there, they're like, well, they're already halfway there, you have to pay for it now. So just like I was reading, I was like, oh, this is stuff I know Goat would respond to, because I know Goat loves when filmmakers just like say F it and like put their foot down and make the movie they want to make and fight the studio.
Yeah.
And like what a passion project that movie was for such a long time. And you read this, and you can get emotional reading it because it's like this is a movie he wanted to make since the 80s, and it just took him forever to make it, and how long and how much he just like never gave up, and like the bizarreness of it, and like the fact that it was like not a script but just a series of illustrations, and how the cast just didn't even understand, and that led to the cast like feeling like lost and not knowing what they're doing out there, and obviously that led to the big Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron hating each other. And they're very honest about that and that as well. About very interesting stories about the clashes between the two of them. So I do think you should read it. I think it's very interesting. But I'm also just curious, like, does knowing that stuff and knowing that man, it was like all or almost all practical. Does that change how you feel about it at all?
I mean, yes and no. I feel like the practical thing was shoved down our throats from the get go, and like I actually felt like they oversold, like even from the initial hype, like how practical it was. And I wasn't aware of the book. I mean, the title sounds familiar, but I haven't like heard any of that information from it or anything, so I'm not really familiar with it. But I think I saw the screenshot somewhere on my phone. But like, I've been filling out Warner Brothers surveys for years, and they don't really give me much for it. I think I've gotten a couple digital codes over the years, and that's it, which I don't really care about. But they gave me a Curly Sue digital code. but like they're like one of the things was like, and it was back when like everybody was swearing up and down, like before any of the behind the scenes shit really came out, before the disc had come out and all the special feature shit came out, and everybody's swearing up and down that the movie was 1,000%, 150% practical. And then Warner Brothers was like, did you, like, one of the questions was like, what did you like about Mad Max Fury Road? Did you like it was like, it had just like a list of things, the characters, and it was like the CGI action scenes. And I'm like, was that just like an oversight? Like, why would they put that? And then like, I've seen some of the stuff where it's like, it is practical, but like you said, like, the thing doesn't flip over, and then they drag the thing for a while on cables, and then they edit out the cables. So like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I've also watched the movie more times since then, and I've actually purchased the movie a bunch of times. I bought the 3D version. I bought the black and chrome version. I really like the black and chrome version. I think I appreciate that probably a lot more than most people do. I mean, I've definitely softened on it, Trev. Don't get me wrong. I definitely softened on it. I definitely like the movie. But for sure, what you're really getting at here is I think looking back in hindsight and whatever, even though I wasn't high on the movie originally, is like, because they do want to make another one, and they are making it supposedly, or making it soon, and it's been a struggle, and George Miller had to sue Warner Brothers because they weren't living up to their contractual needs with him. And it's like, of course, like, and George Miller, like, he wasn't a young man when he made Mad Max Fury Road. He's definitely a less younger man now. I mean, the time is ticking by so fast now. Like, even, you know, the main villain from Fury Road unfortunately passed away a couple years ago. It's like, yeah, I appreciate all that. And, like, I appreciate the fact that he, from what you're saying, and I kind of like watching the road that Warner Brothers in general has gone down. And don't get me wrong, Warner Brothers is a studio I like. I don't hate them. I don't have as many bones to pick with them as I do about Disney. But I do appreciate that, like, the things like what you're saying, and it's kind of come out in retrospect, the battles he's had with them over the years since Fury Road was released. I do appreciate that he forced them to be a real movie studio for once in their fucking lives. You know what I mean?
That's what's actually, when I read the book and, like, you read about how, so I think that like one of the biggest takeaway for me of the book is, like, you're just so happy for him, because it was such a long road for him to get that movie made. Like I said, like, it was so many delays, so many times they were about to go. They tell a story. I never realized how close they were to filming it that one time, to where they had all the vehicles built. It's interesting, because, like, it's one thing the book is kind of missing is, like, they flat out admit that they were, like, weeks away from production, and then there was that thing where they had to shut down because of like 9/11 and everything, and changing things, and it doesn't really say in there entirely who is cast and all the parts. I wish they got a little bit more into that. There were some interesting, if you heard any kind of, like, viral stories from the book, one of them might have been that one of the actors that George Miller briefly considered to play Mad Max was Eminem, which is, like, insane until you remember that how actually strong Eminem's performance was in 8 Mile, and that's apparently what George Miller was, like, responding to. But yeah, like, so how long it took him to make that. But yeah, like, the other point I was about to make is, feeding off what you just said, is it's really surprising reading that book and just reading about how much he fought Warner Brothers in that movie, and, like, what he had to put up with. And then at the end of the book, they go, like, so anyways, he's about to make Furiosa for Warner Brothers. And you're like, what? Like, how, like, just the way Hollywood works, to where, like, how quickly, just with money, people are just like, well, let's just try this again. You're like, and like, oh, okay, I guess. But
well, I'm sure the book probably gives a little bit of the background too. But the one thing that I always thought fascinating was, like, literally the only reason they kind of entertained him and shit, and he was able to even get the ball rolling on it, was the fact that he made them so much money with fucking Happy Feet.
Yeah, no, they get into that. And it was also, like, one of those things where, like, it's always the case, right? This is the story you hear 1,000 times if you're a movie fan, of, like, one person working at Warner Brothers who likes him and gets the vision, you know, and, like, signs off it, and everybody else in the studio being, what is this? What are we spending money on? And they said, especially as there did come a point, and you hear about this happening all the time too, where the footage that was getting sent back to them was, you couldn't understand it, right? Because the way he films, the cast didn't understand it, because he you know, every shot is something he has meticulously planned. And they say, like, he would spend, like, a whole day being like, we got to get the shot of the foot coming down the gas pedal. And Charlize Theron's like, why are we doing this? And he's just like, trust me, because they don't know how it edits together. He has that in his head, right? And eventually Warner Brothers sent, like, minders out to set. And they talk in the story about how they had to do that thing where they try to distract them. And, like, you know, like, what do we do? Like, what do we do to keep the minders, like, because they would probably try to shut this down. So, yeah. Well,
I'm sure, too, that bizarre footage of Tom Hardy trying to escape the cave or whatever in the beginning, how it's like, it's literally, like, hand cranked like a fucking 1913 Charlie Chaplin movie. I'm sure that really had Warner Brothers, like, doing spit takes in the screening room and, like... No, I mean, I appreciate... You know, it's kind of funny that you say that, though, and I fully admit this, this is probably a fault of my own, is that version, like, around 2001 or whatever, I think I always held it against Fury Road that it wasn't that version didn't get made. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that was the movie I wanted, what they were going to make, but...
And I get that, and I think, like, when you read the book, that is, and whether you, like, how much you believe them or how much it matters to you, like, they say in there, like, ultimately George Miller says things happen for a reason, and it's like, you know, that delay allowed them to like work on it even harder and work on it more and like work on the vehicles longer. That was like one thing that I find like maybe the most interesting thing in the book was them talking to all the people who designed those vehicles and talking about like how much work went into that and like the impressive amount of detail. And it made me like, now every time I watch the film, I think I'll like be even more like locked into that of saying like, look at every single piece of those vehicles. Like that was all something we thought about, and like the etchings in that, and like every piece of it is put together, and they're like these work of arts. And they talk about how sad it was at the end to just watch that all get like kind of scrapped. And it does make you wonder why they didn't try to make some effort to kind of make like a Fury Road museum or exhibit somewhere, you know, to like save all that stuff. But
well, yeah, George Miller has such a long history with Warner Brothers too. It's like I'm a fan of Joss Whedon's Frankenstein Justice League. I'm a big fan of Zack Snyder's Justice League. But the Justice League movie I always wanted the most was George Miller's Justice League, which also apparently came really close to shooting, and for whatever reason.
Yeah, well, yeah, because his Wonder Woman ended up in Fury Road.
Yeah.
Megan Gale, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's just another... personally... You know me. What does the Colonel guy say in Boogie Nights? I'm a simple man. I like butterscotch in my mouth and lollipops in my ass, or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm a simple man, and I still maintain, Trev, I think Neil Marshall's Doomsday did it better.
Ugh, I can't. I mean, I enjoy Doomsday for what it is, but I certainly don't agree with that. To me, maybe I'm a simpleton. Maybe I'm just harping on like what other people on film Twitter or whatever say. But I'm still that mentality. I think Fury Road is one of, if not like the best movies of like this century. Like I love it.
Speaking of which, have you seen that new Neil Marshall movie he made starring his girlfriend Charlotte Kirk?
His Crazy Girlfriend? No,
yeah.
I've not. I'm not avoiding it for any reason.
No,
I just haven't.
I want to see it. It sounds interesting. Yeah. I am. I gotta admit, I am fascinated by the Charlotte Kirk saga, and I really hope, like, not just like a shitty like tabloid movie. I really would like somebody to make I don't know, a drama movie about that situation and what happened. But
I mean, she'd probably be willing to star in it. I'm sure. Like,
yeah, why not do it? Well, yeah, why not? I mean. You know, but I don't know. It's just interesting.
It frustrates me because I feel like Neil Marshall could be doing more interesting stuff. You know, like he's a director to me, like does not really lived up to his potential, I guess, or in recent years. And I think the Charlotte Kirk thing really was a distraction he didn't need. But
I kind of think with Neil Marshall, I think it's less of his career failed. I don't think he made a disaster thing. I think he was trying to resurrect his career or try to get his career heated back up with the Hellboy reboot, and I think that's what sunk him probably for good, unfortunately, really.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I still like his early stuff quite a bit, though. So.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So, yeah, Trev, I gotta give you 1,000 thanks, buddy. I have been offline for quite a while, and you were always there, always supportive, ready to actually record a different episode we had in mind. But it took me quite a while longer than I originally thought to get back online here and recording again. And it just, the calendar creeped up, and I was like, oh, damn, man, like, we're going to miss our yearly Friday the 13th show. And you dropped all your pots and pans that you had to make this happen in a short time frame, and I appreciate that so much. And it was as fun as always, and I'm already looking forward to next year when we can do another Friday the 13th.
Yeah, of course. Even though it's part 5, I'm also excited. And I'm still excited about the other episode we have planned. So.
Yeah, I am too. I'm really that's one of the ones I've been looking forward to for a long time. So yeah, I'm sure we'll get that soon. Strangely enough, I forgot to ask you this question, but I meant to ask you this question. So we'll actually wrap this up with Friday the 13th. Do you have any knowledge or anything? Did these movies, like when they did the gimmick of releasing them on Friday the 13th, did they do better? Or do you think that was ever a factor, or people were just so crazy with slashers they didn't give a shit? Because some of them were released on Friday the 13th and some weren't.
Yeah, I don't think because Friday the 13th is not like a real holiday, you know, like it's just a thing that comes up and be like, oh, it's Friday the 13th. I can't imagine it really moved the needle. Yeah. I don't like. I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know if I can actually imagine a real. I think it's entirely hypothetical, and I can't imagine an actual person who's like, well, I would go see Friday the 13th, but it's not coming out on a Friday the 13th. You know, that's not the same as like Halloween coming out in August, which was always stupid.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But like Friday the 13th, it doesn't matter when you release it. It's people are going to go check. The slasher fans are going to come out for that, and whatever the date is it's released on.
Yeah, I think the studio probably initially, because I know this one they really pressured Zito to like he only finished the movie a couple of days before they had to like make the prints and send it out to theaters. I think initially the studio probably thought it was this huge marketing gimmick, and I know probably Sean Cunningham did. But as time went on, they were probably like, "Hey, we still want to make some money, and there's no Friday the 13th coming up." So,
Well, go. Let me ask you one last Friday the 13th question to wrap up. Because we have not gotten a new one in now over 10 years, and it's not looking great anytime soon. Have you at all waded into the waters of Friday the 13th fan films to like scratch that itch? Because there's a crap ton of them to check out.
Not recently, but I have, and I gotta say the Friday the 13th fan films, I've seen a couple decent ones. Which, by the way, the Blu-rays or DVDs at some point they were doing these short films and then putting them on there, and like I'm sorry, they were kind of bad. You know?
Yeah, they were terrible.
I know they had zero budget, but I was like, the fan films are better than these. They should just contact the fans and like make them and say, oh, here's a little, licensing fee or whatever. But yeah, and I gotta say, I think the biggest one a couple years ago was Never Hike Alone.
Yeah, which I like that one.
Yeah, I do too. And I gotta say, it for a little bit, it kind of got me like, well, if they're not going to give us, what we want, like I'll just watch these. And I watched some Halloween ones. Unfortunately, I didn't find similar success in the Halloween fan films. And then for a little while, I was hot and heavy on the Star Wars fan films. And then I crashed and burned on those. So I have not gone back to fan films. But ironically, the best ones I have ever seen, and I don't know if it's just because the premise is more simplistic or what, but it is the Friday the 13th fan films.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's what I mean. Like, I think actually it is a nice way to scratch the itch right now, because ultimately the fan films, to me, are actually really indicative of what we were just saying we liked about the original iteration of the franchise. Is it just feels like they're scrappy, they're cheap, they're quickly put together, and I actually agree with you that I would be entirely fine if, like, the way that this franchise eventually comes back is they just say, well, every year we'll just give a group of fans a budget and like let them go off and make like whatever Friday the 13th movie they want. Because again, there's no reason to be precious with this franchise.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like, oh, who's like the most up and coming horror filmmaker. Like, it's different. Like, there's different, like, I would love to see Mike Flanagan do Nightmare on Elm Street. I think that would be awesome. But I don't need him to do Friday the 13th. Give Friday the 13th to like anybody, whatever. Just give me a fun guy in a hockey mask killing people in the woods. So the fan films actually oftentimes are pretty fun, I think.
And also too, like, this is just another debate. Obviously, we don't have time at this point to get into, but I gotta say, even if it meant we had to wait an extra 5-10 years, like, I don't want to see Friday the 13th streaming either. Make it a theatrical movie, because there's just too much history with these films and the theatrical runs. Like, the theatrical runs actually are what made these movies legendary, honestly.
Yep.
So again, a million thanks, Trev, and I want to thank you, the listeners, for hanging in there. And I gotta say thank you for sure, Trev, because I had so many people encourage me, check in on me. They noticed that the episodes were absent for a couple months. So you listener guys, thank you for it was nice talking to you, some of you guys I corresponded with, and thank you. And it's nice to know we're making this show for actually people that want to listen to it, right, Trev?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's a show I like listening to, so it's nice to know other people are out there checking it out. So
absolutely. So until next time, have fun, everybody, and we'll see you again soon in the movie graveyard.